American Comics. Multiverse of all universes will be invaded to the Marvel world. Chapter 1. In a cheap apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Get it done, it took me a lot of effort. Xie-Yun looked at the laptop in front of him with a smile on his face. The above content can be said to be terrifying enough to be banned. In fact, he is not from this world. He died in an accident in a car accident in his previous life and traveled to the Marvel world. In this world where the poor rely on mutation and the rich rely on technology, it is particularly difficult for ordinary people to survive. It can be said that if you go out for a few steps, you will encounter a world of super-powered crime. Xie-Yun, who arrived from time travel, was in a complicated mood. He tried every means to survive. Since I'm not a rich man and I'm not a scientist, I can't rely on technology. As for mutation, the mutant spider hasn't been developed yet, so I can't join Osborn Company. As for experiencing gamma radiation, he wouldn't commit suicide. The easiest way seems to be to go to Carmitage to learn magic, but he doesn't know how to get there. If he continues to be mediocre like this, he will be able to avoid the invasion of the Chitauri Legion and the Ultron crisis in the future. Fortunately, the system finally woke up when Xie-Yun was at a loss. That universe is full of terrifying creatures, even gods. In order to fight against them, an existence called the Containment Object Containment Society appeared. In order to protect humans, they stood at the forefront against this group of creatures and took them in, so they called them contained objects. It went well at first, but in the end the contained objects became more and more powerful, and even existences that destroyed the universe appeared, exceeding the power of the Containment Association. In the end, the containment failed, leading to the destruction of the universe. This group of contained objects took refuge in other universes. There are other worlds in the Marvel universe that will be invaded by contained objects, repeating the same mistakes as the contained object containment universe. Fortunately, however, there are also beings friendly to humans among these many sheltered objects, including Xie-Yun's golden finger. This stores information about all contained objects and predicts where the contained objects will appear. He also asked Xie-Yun to make a video about the upcoming contained objects and publish it, so that the world could be prepared for the containment of the objects that would be invaded. When the containment is successful, Xie-Yun and those who successfully contain them will receive generous rewards. Looking at this system, Xie-Yun couldn't help but be stunned. Marvel was already in chaos, and there was an invasion of contained objects, and no one was going to survive. But he can't control that much now. For rewards and survival, he does it. He understands contained objects, but he is an old fan. 123 is a wooden peanut, a shy guy who will explode if he takes one more look at it, the immortal master of the contained objects combat power measuring device, and even the supreme divinity, the god of machinery, the god of flesh, the king of seals, the three gods of death, and so on. Which one is enough to shock the world if released alone? But what he didn't expect was that this thing actually existed, and it was so outrageous that he couldn't control it so much. In order to cope with future major events such as the Chitauri Legion's invasion, Dormammu's attack, and the Purple Sweet Potato Spirit's attack, as well as various unknown threats, Xie-Yun worked hard for 3 days and 3 nights before finally finishing the video. Ding dong, it is detected that the host video has been completed. Do you want to publish it immediately? Yes, Xie-Yun made the choice without hesitation. This was a critical moment, so there was no room for hesitation. Haha, if the shitheads and black braised eggs in this world saw such a terrifying thing, I wonder what their expressions would be like, and what would the world become like. Although it was a bit excessive to think so, Xie-Yun still had to look forward to it. At this moment, several worlds began to undergo earth-shaking changes, and a screen appeared in front of some characters. Tony Stark's villa. Tony looked weak, and the screen was full of confusion. Tony Stark's mansion. Jarvis, will palladium poisoning cause hallucinations? Tony looked at the screen in confusion, thinking it was a hallucination that only occurred to him when he was about to die. Since he got palladium poisoning, he has been escaping from reality every day. His originally nice villa has become extremely dirty, with wine bottles all over the floor. Even his own image has not been well managed, and his face is covered with stubble. No, sir, this is not a hallucination. I saw it too. However, Jarvis's words surprised Tony. So what exactly is this, the most advanced projection technology? But he doesn't have projection equipment here. Jarvis, check everything in the house immediately and find the source of the projection for me. Tony did not believe in evil and immediately checked every corner. Although he was about to die, it did not mean that he could allow people to mess around in his home. Yes, sir. Asgard. In the Asgard, the King of Thunder god Thor's king ceremony was being carried out, but it was interrupted by a screen that suddenly appeared. All Asgardians looked at this screen in confusion. Loki, is this your new spell? It's very interesting. Do you want to celebrate my ascension to the throne? Thor mistakenly thought it was Loki congratulating him on his spell, crossed his arms and looked at the screen with a smile on his face. My younger brother's magic skills are getting more and more powerful, and he can do any tricks. No, it has nothing to do with me. Loki shook his head to clear it up. He didn't know what was going on with this screen, let alone how could he celebrate Thor. Odin stared at the screen with a serious face. He directly attacked the screen with the Eternal Spear. As a result, the power of the Eternal Spear passed directly through the screen and nothing happened. This scene made all Asgardians exclaim. This is the most powerful weapon in the 9 realms. How come it has no effect? Is this someone trying to invade Asgard? Heimdall checks the situation in the universe. Everyone, prepare for battle. As Odin, who was used to seeing countless strong winds and waves, issued instructions to resist enemy invasion at any time, while thinking crazily in his mind. Is it an iceberg giant, a dark elf, or something from the underworld causing trouble? Shield. Fury looked at the screen in front of him with a dark face. He was listening to the reports from Natasha, Hawkeye and Hill, but this thing suddenly appeared, scaring him so much that he fired directly, but it was of no use. As an experienced agent, he is keenly aware that this screen is not simple. Is the director okay? Coulson heard the noise and walked in. It's okay, let's go out. Fury waved his hand, and Coulson left despite being confused. His every move was watched closely by the 4 people. He can't see. Hill pointed at the screen with a surprised look on his face. Coulson just passed through it directly, how could he not notice this screen? Does it mean that only the 4 of us can see it? Hawkeye had to tell this guess, and he felt cold all over for some reason. Fury, what's going on? Natasha took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. Even as a veteran agent, looking at this strange screen made her feel uncomfortable inside. Just wait and see, Why did you see Stark's name? Fury saw the beginning of a sentence floating across the screen, with Tony Stark's name written on it. Tony Stark. Hey, do any of you know what's going on? Why can the things I think about be turned into words and posted? Nick Fury. Stark, why are you here? You saw it too. Tony Stark. Hey, Black Braised Egg, you're here too. Loki. Who are you? Did you create this screen? What are you doing to Asgard? Hawkeye. Asgard. Loki. Where did this delusional person come from, calling himself by a mythical name? Loki. You fools. You are blaspheming. Ancient One. Well, are even the Asgardians involved? In the square of Kamatage, the magic apprentices all pointed at the screen with puzzled faces. How is this going? Strange, who had just returned from the Himalayas, was looking at the screen shivering. Did he have hallucinations after being frozen for too long? Master Ancient One, is this Dormammu's invasion method? Mordu asked with a worried look on his face. He tried various magical means to check the screen, but nothing worked. At this time, Ji Yuyi was shaking his fan constantly and looking at the screen attentively. It doesn't look like Dormammu, but it may be a trick of other gods, and it involves not only us but even other universes. As an expert in the ancient world who deals with demons from various dimensions and the universe every day, he noticed something was wrong with this screen and could only wait and see what happened. Asgard. Even the Ancient One is here. Odin had to look shocked when he saw Ji Yuyi's name. Ji Yuyi was one of the people in the entire 9 realms who could make him fear him. This matter was becoming more and more confusing. The barrages on the screen continued to flow past. Uzumaki Naruto. Hey, who are you and what is going on? Jiraiya. Naruto, don't talk nonsense until you understand it clearly. Naruto World, Tavern. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto's head angrily and pushed him down on the table. Since Orochimaru attacked Konoha and the Sandaime Hokage died and the new Hokage was appointed, they came to look for Tsunade, hoping that she would serve as the 5th Hokage. As a result, in the middle of the conversation, this screen suddenly appeared. This made Jiraiya and Tsunade feel like they were facing a powerful enemy, thinking it was some enemy's trick, so they were on full alert. In the end, Naruto was unprepared and Jiraiya was frightened. It would be terrible if there was a trap. Tsunade-sama, what is this, a ninjutsu or a genjutsu? Shizune asked confused. It looks like it's neither. What it is, and it seems like only we can see it. Tsunade looked at the other guests in the tavern, but no one noticed the screen. Although the screen was so conspicuous, none of the guests saw it and passed by, still immersed in the fun of wine and meat. This strange situation made both Jiraiya and Tsunade feel frightened. One Piece world. Thousand Sunny. This looks fun, my thoughts are actually turned into words on it. Luffy was sitting on the bow of the boat, looking at the screen with a smile on his face, and kept saying various things. Why am I the man who wants to become the Pirate King? I kept brushing past. Hey, Luffy, stop messing around, this might be some kind of trap. Sanji quickly pressed Luffy's head to stop him from messing around. But what kind of ability is this? I've never heard of it. Robin looked at the screen with confusion. He had never heard of such an ability. It can't be ghosts. The souls of the dead in the Great Triangle Sea didn't want us to leave, so they showed up. The timid Usopp screamed and trembled all over, frightening Nami and Chopper next to him and screaming continuously. Hey, I don't want the undead. It's so scary. After hearing this, Brook immediately raised his hands in fright, and his whole body was shaking. Are you more afraid? Frankie next to him couldn't help but complain. You all should be quiet, there might be enemies nearby. Zoro on the observation deck shouted angrily, enough is enough. If there is a sudden abnormality and you don't know the warning, you will be taken advantage of. Hehe, this is interesting. However, the big-hearted Luffy doesn't care about that much. The more unknown it is to him, the more risky it is. Navy Headquarters. Warring States looked at Luffy's past comments, his expression was extremely ugly. Why is it the Straw Hat Boy again? Did he do this? Sengoku shouted angrily. First he captured Enies Hall, then he defeated Moonlight Moria, one of the Shichibukai, and now he is involved in a big incident. Why should anyone stop him? Is he that capable of invading our place? Akainu looked serious, feeling something was wrong. This is a bit like the video played by a movie and TV phone bug. Could it be arranged by the Revolutionary Army to declare war on us? After Kizaru finished speaking, he drank a cup of tea and looked lazy, not taking any responsibility for his words. After hearing this, Warring States frowned and thought it was possible, so he immediately checked the entire office and found that there was no other phone bug except himself. I don't care who did it, it's best not to be caught by me. This kind of thing that invaded directly in front of him made Zhongguo feel very embarrassed and couldn't help but clench his fists hard. Ultraman Leo World. At the MAC team base, everyone else went out to perform patrols. Feng Yuan and Zhu Xingtuan were left here. Except for the sound of radio waves, it was extremely quiet here. Captain, what is this, an alien invasion method? Feng Yuan looked at the screen in shock, mistaking it for an alien invasion announcement. At this time, the star clusters were playing with radar equipment and surveillance cameras, and there were no alien invasions in the universe. He then walked to the barrier on crutches and used his telekinesis to try to figure out what was going on. But he was shocked to find that his telekinesis could not touch the screen. What exactly is this? The stars, which had always been calm after many battles, had to be a little panicked at this moment. Dragon Ball World. Sun Wukong is running on the snake path. Today is the day of the Saiyan attack. He must rush back to the earth no matter what. What is this? Why is it always blocking me, and it can still catch up with me? Sun Wukong looked at the screen in front of him in confusion. Forget it, just stay out of the way. He can't control that much now. A wasteland. Uncle Piccolo, what is this? Sun Wuhan looked at the screen in confusion. I don't know, maybe it's a trick of the Saiyans. Anyway, just be vigilant. Piccolo's already green face turned even greener, and he actually appeared without being noticed. What's going on? This feeling made him particularly unhappy. In the space capsule. Naba, do you have anything in front of you? No, what's wrong? Never mind. Question mark. Vegeta looked at the screen in front of him. He was sleeping when this thing suddenly appeared, causing him to almost destroy the space capsule. I can't even touch it. Is this a trick played by the people on Earth to welcome us? Vegeta sneered disdainfully. He wanted to see what tricks this could do. 600th World. Batman's secret base. Bruce Wayne was fiddling with various instruments back and forth, trying to figure out what was going on with the screen. However, no matter how hard he tried, he just couldn't get an answer. This made him sweat profusely and make him more and more irritable. Batman is his biggest secret, and now a screen suddenly appears, seeming to tell him how difficult it is to protect secrets. It made him extremely anxious, fearing that things would develop in an uncontrollable direction. In an apartment, Wonder Woman Diana calmly drank a cup of coffee and looked at the screen in front of her. Is this a trick done by some god? Is it Zeus or Hermes? Is it the devil? Diana had long been accustomed to this kind of special situation, but was actually very interested in it. Doraemon World. Doraemon, what props are you making? Nobita was lying lazily on the tatami, reading comics, and glanced at the screen. He thought it was caused by Doraemon. It's not me. Is it the future department store advertising? Doraemon did not take the blame, and then conducted various checks on the screen and found that it was not caused by a secret prop. When I was still about to do something, a voice came from the screen. At this time, a sound appears on the screen. Welcome people from different universes to come to this live broadcast room. This live broadcast room is dedicated to taking stock of many incredible creatures. A sound suddenly appeared on the screen, interrupting everyone's movements, and all eyes were drawn to the screen. In this world, no, this universe, it should be a different universe, there are all kinds of incredible creatures, objects, or indescribable existences. Such existences have incalculable harmful capabilities to human beings and even the entire universe. Therefore, we need to contain, control, and deal with such things to ensure the safety of human beings. So we call this type of existence a containment object. We contain, we control, we protect, we are warriors who secretly protect mankind, and are the last line of defense for mankind. We cannot fall, we must win, we must protect mankind in secret, so that mankind does not know the dangers of the world, and let everyone people can live in peace. This is the purpose of us, the shelter organization, but unfortunately we failed. Quote. SHIELD. Nick Fury couldn't help but frown when he heard this. This is what SHIELD does, specifically targeting aliens, superpowers, magic, anything that can harm humans. Protect humans in the dark. Is the containment meeting mentioned on this screen also doing this kind of thing? The result failed. Hill, record all the so-called containment objects. I want them to be made of paper. Nick Fury immediately gave the order. The screen sound has not ended yet. We have tried hard to fight against the contained objects, but unfortunately failed in the end. They escaped and don't know which universe they are going to. Therefore, I publish their information here and predict where they will appear. I hope someone can fight against them. I will predict next the first one is a contained object, a wooden sculpture with a crying face, nicknamed Little Peanut. The next second something strange appeared on the screen. This is a creature that looks humanoid, but has a bald body, a big head, pale skin, and a weird face. One Piece World, Thousand Sunny. Appeared. Ghost. Nami, Usopp, Chopper and Brook couldn't help but hug each other. Ever since the screen appeared, they had always thought it was being haunted. Now they suddenly saw such a strange face and couldn't help but scream. Aren't you a ghost too? Nami couldn't help but punch Brook. It's so noisy. Quiet. After Zoro adjusted it down, he couldn't help but scolded. But what is this, the Contained Object Containment Society, the universe? What is it? Sanji kept smoking, trying to calm himself down as much as possible. The universe. I remember some scholars once studied it. Robin seemed to have thought of something, but it had been so long ago that he had forgotten it. This thing does look like peanuts. I don't know if it can be eaten. Luffy, on the other hand, smiled indifferently and looked at the big screen with curiosity. At this time, a voice appeared and began to describe. No one knows how the contained wooden sculpture of a crying face appeared. The material seems to be made of concrete and steel bars, but it cannot be destroyed by conventional means. It will not move when it is looked at, but when someone's eyes move, if you open it or blink, it will instantly move to the opponent's back and break the neck. Quote. After the sound ends, the screen switches. It is a place that looks like a laboratory. The wooden sculpture of the crying face is motionless inside, and there are 3 staff members inside. One is cleaning, and the other 2 are looking at the wooden sculpture of a crying face. The 2 people responsible for watching the wooden sculpture of the weeping face seemed to be novices who did not know the rules and actually made the mistake of blinking at the same time. At the moment the 2 of them blinked, the weeping face wooden sculpture disappeared instantly, and when he reappeared, he had already broken one of the people's necks. Killing one person is not the end. As long as there are humans near the weeping face wooden sculpture and there is no visual contact, he will continue to teleport, twist his neck, and repeat. In less than 2 seconds, 3 staff members had their necks broken. Dong dong dong. The next second, many fully armed people ran into the room, raised their guns and stared at the crying wood sculpture. The crying wood sculpture that had been killing people before was now very honest and motionless. When the crying wood sculpture is alone in the room, it will make a sound of grinding against the wall. That is a normal phenomenon. Please note that when entering the crying wood sculpture room, there must be 2 people staring at it at the same time, and they must take turns blinking. Before blinking, give a hint, otherwise the one in front will be a lesson. After the voice ended, everyone who saw this had to show a look of shock. Marvel, Stark Villa. What? You will be killed the moment you blink. Tony was so scared when he saw this scene that he stood up, and his tired eyelids couldn't help blinking non-stop. Don't blink. This scared Tony so much that he used his armored hands to open his eyelids and looked around hard, fearing that the crying wood sculpture would appear next to him. At this time, Tony saw his villa clearly. It was messy and the lights were off. It looked very strange, as if there was really something in the darkness. Sir, there is nothing in the villa. Jarvis reminded him kindly. That's good, that's good. Tony heaved a sigh of relief after hearing this, but his eyes were still wide open, and he didn't dare to close them. 600th World, Batman Base. Bruce Wayne looked at the screen in shock. His eyes were wide open, as if he was afraid to close them. As a result, sweat flowed into his eyes. Woo! This forced him to close his eyes, and then he quickly opened them with force, regardless of whether his eyes were uncomfortable or not, and looked around anxiously. In the dark Batcave, there was nothing except advanced machines. Sir, just when Bruce Wayne was about to relax, an old voice came, scaring him so much that he almost jumped. He quickly picked up the batarang next to him and looked at the source of the sound, and saw Alfred holding a stake next to him, with a confused look on his face. Master Wayne, it seems you really need to sleep well. After Alfred finished speaking dissatisfied, he put down the stake and walked away, not paying attention to the screen next to him. Ha, ha, ha. After confirming that there was no such thing in the Batcave, Bruce Wayne relaxed. The majestic Batman, the master of fear, was actually frightened, which made him feel extremely complicated. In the apartment, Diana frowned in confusion. She had never heard of such a creature. Did it come from another world? Navy headquarters. Warring States looked at this scene with an ugly expression. He has never heard of this kind of monster. What kind of speed is this? It's beyond comparison with shaving. Akainu looked at the screen in surprise. He couldn't see clearly just now when the so-called crying wooden sculpture moved. This kind of speed is simply invincible. Kizaru, can you do it? Sengoku looked at Kizaru, who claimed to be as fast as the speed of light. I can do it at that speed, but it will take some time to enter the elemental form, but this monster doesn't require any preparation. When Kizaru said this, he couldn't help but sweat dripping from his forehead. Fortunately, I can elementalize myself, otherwise it would be difficult to estimate the consequences for the crying-faced wood carving. Sakazuki immediately arranges for people to investigate the information about this monster. And let's see if we can find out who is behind this video. Warring States immediately calmed down and gave the order. Akainu quickly left after hearing this. The world is already in turmoil. How could such a monster suddenly appear? Could it be a new weapon of the Revolutionary Army? Warring States looked ugly. Naruto World. Ah! Naruto blinked in shock and looked at the screen content. He couldn't see the speed of the crying wooden sculpture. Hey, I blinked. That thing wouldn't have appeared. Naruto was so frightened that he quickly looked around. Fortunately, he didn't see the crying wooden sculpture. Instead, he saw a bunch of confused guests. Idiot, be quiet. Jiraiya quickly stabilized Naruto, but he didn't dare to look away from the screen, for fear that the thing would really run out of it. This speed is only comparable to Minato's Flying Thunder God and Uchiha's Shunshin Shisui. Jiraiya took a deep breath and said carefully. He has traveled to many countries and seen a lot of things, but he has never heard of such a terrifying thing. It would be very troublesome if the enemy used it against Konoha. I'm afraid it's even better. Tsunade, however, had a different outcome. The 4th generation Flying Thunder God needs to be marked in advance. Shunshin Shisui needs to activate the Sharingan, but the condition for this monster is to look away for a moment. When Tsunade said this, she really couldn't go on. In this way, the teleportation that the Yondaime and Shunshin Shisui should be proud of could not compare to this monster. He might even be killed. The result made her back soaked instantly. Don't scare yourself. If Minato really confronts this thing, he will definitely be able to do it without blinking. Jiraiya said dissatisfiedly that he trusted his apprentice very much and there was no way he would lose to a broken statue. Doraemon World. Nobita, this is too brutal, you can't watch it. Doraemon blocked Nobita's eyes, making Nobita struggle particularly uncomfortably. Such violent and bloody scenes are not suitable for primary school students to watch. But Doraemon, didn't he say that if you look away, he will appear? Nobita shouted even more panicked. It's okay, I'll take care of it. Only then did Doraemon remember this, and quickly found a rebound cloak and put it on the two of them, fearing that this thing would really appear. Leo World. It teleports in the blink of an eye. What kind of monster is this? It's so terrifyingly fast. Feng Yuan looked at the screen, not daring to blink, and opened her mouth wide. The stars next to him had to frown. He had never heard of this monster called the Weeping Wooden Sculpture. Was it an alien creature from somewhere? To take precautions, we may encounter him in the future. It is better to let Feng Yuan conduct targeted training. Zhu Xingtan quickly thought of various training measures. The most effective one is chasing Feng Yuan in a jeep without blinking an eye. Must watch. Dragon Ball World. Sun Wukong looked at the screen while running on the snake path. What kind of monster is this? It's so fast. Can it be used against Saiyans? In the universe, the Saiyan space capsule. What a thing, a frightening thing, it's nothing at all. Vegeta snorted disdainfully. The ability displayed by this crying wooden sculpture was nothing at all. He was confident that he could eliminate it in just a moment. It seems that this is a weapon prepared by the people on Earth to welcome me, haha, stupid. Vegeta was no longer interested, the Earth was in front of him, and the Dragon Balls would be available soon. Marvel, Karma Taj. The magic apprentices in the square looked at the screen with big eyes and small eyes. It moves at high speeds in the blink of an eye. It's so scary. Oh my god, I blinked too. I won't die. The apprentices were so frightened that they didn't dare to blink and tried their best to keep their eyes wide open. Don't panic, this is just a video, it won't come out. Seeing how panicked everyone was, Ji Yuyi reminded helplessly. After everyone heard this, they calmed down. It's no wonder that Master Ji Yuyi is here. Master Ancient One, I have never heard of such a thing. Wong took a deep breath and said, he asked himself that he had read countless books, but he had never heard of a wooden sculpture with a crying face. This is a creature from another universe. You don't know it's normal. Ji Yuyi was not surprised, how could he master the knowledge of the multiverse? But a wooden sculpture with a crying face. Does this mean there are more than 100 creatures like this? Ji Yuyi murmured to himself, and Modu, Wong and Strange beside him could not help but widen their eyes after hearing this. Now predict where the crying face wooden sculpture will appear. At this moment, the cold voice appeared again. Location, Marvel Universe Earth, S.H.I.E.L.D. Research Institute. When the sound ended, the scene switched to a place that looked like a laboratory, with a wooden sculpture of a crying face standing in the middle. S.H.I.E.L.D., my fac. Fury stood up with a shocked look on his face. When did such a monster appear in S.H.I.E.L.D.? How come he doesn't know? When did we get this monster? Fury looked at the three people, and they immediately shook their heads vigorously, knowing nothing. At this time, a bunch of barrages floated across the screen. Tony Stark, S.H.I.E.L.D., it turns out you did this. What do you want to do? Loki. A mere earthling dares to play with the gods. Are you looking for death? Thor. Huh, does the Earth have such powerful technology? But it looks interesting. Warring States. Shield. What is that? Those who belong to the Revolutionary Army are still the 4 emperors. Sun Wukong. It looks a lot like Bulma's Research Institute. One Piece World, Navy Headquarters. Sengoku looked at the picture with confusion. He had never heard of SHIELD. So he immediately picked up the phone and ordered. Immediately investigate the thing called SHIELD. Keep an eye on the Yonko and the Revolutionary Army to see if there is any movement. Oops, is it an unknown force? It's going to be troublesome now. I don't know how much trouble it will cause. When Kizaru was talking, he calmly drank black tea, with a leisurely look on his face, which was in contrast to the content of his words. If you are free, please help with the investigation. When the marshal saw Kizaru fishing so blatantly, he immediately became furious. Leo's world. Captain, do you know SHIELD? Feng Yuan asked with a puzzled look. I've never heard of it at all. It's just that there seem to be foreign faces there. Maybe it's the research department of a foreign MAC team. I'll ask. After Morohoshiden answered, he picked up the satellite phone and contacted the overseas MAC team. He was full of doubts. Logically speaking, there was no need to set up a new organization to study alien creatures and new weapons. What do foreign MAC teams want to do? Is it a single family? However, if this kind of creature really exists on Earth, then you really need to get on the jeep and train it. Feng Yuan, who was paying attention to the screen, suddenly felt a chill all over his body, as if something was about to rush over. At this time, the sudden appearance of the crying-faced wooden sculpture in the picture attracted the attention of several researchers, who couldn't help but touch it up and down. What is this? Do we have this thing? It wasn't there just now. Who got this inferior craftsmanship, but it's pretty tough. Get it away quickly, it's just a nuisance. The researchers quickly lost interest, thinking that the sculpture was just a low-quality statue, and walked away. At this moment, the weeping face wooden sculpture was not being looked at. Not good. Seeing this scene, Fury realized something was wrong and screamed. But unfortunately, it was too late. The weeping face wood sculpture displayed its amazing teleportation ability and broke the necks of all the researchers. It was almost completed within a second or two, without any delay. This scene made Nick Fury's face instantly look extremely ugly. Those researchers, the main scientists of SHIELD, actually died like this. This is a big loss. Natasha, Clinton, you two take people to the Research Institute immediately, and you must get this thing. Be careful not to look away, just stare at it. Nick Fury quickly ordered Natasha and Clinton to deal with the weeping wooden sculpture. Then he quickly looked at the screen again. In just a moment, many researchers had their necks broken and killed by the crying wooden sculptures. The Good Research Institute suddenly turned into a slaughterhouse. The death of so many scientists made Nick Fury so angry that his face was already dark, and his facial features could hardly be seen clearly. Scientists are the lifeblood of SHIELD. Without them, how can we develop new weapons? This monster must pay. However, soon the security personnel of the Institute felt that they all picked up their automatic rifles and pointed them at the weeping face wooden sculpture. They made eye contact and stopped the weeping face wooden sculpture from moving, thus stopping the massacre. This gave Nick Fury a sigh of relief. Fire. At this time, a guard suddenly gave an order, and then they opened fire one after another. Many bullets hit the body of the crying-faced wooden sculpture. As a result, without exception, all of them were bounced off and fell to the ground. Bullets from automatic rifles cannot harm the weeping face wood carving at all, and cannot even leave any traces. What? It's so hard. When Nick Fury saw this, he couldn't help but stand up. It was the most advanced assault rifle. It could penetrate steel plates, but it couldn't even knock off the ash from the wooden sculpture of the crying face. How could this thing be so strong? Bring the most advanced laser cannon. We must destroy this thing. Nick Fury gave the order without hesitation. This thing is too terrible and must be destroyed. Fury, are you sure? Hill next to him had a bad feeling after hearing this. I'm pretty sure it would be better for this weird thing to disappear. Nick Fury is very sure that he does not want monsters that appear out of nowhere to continue to exist in SHIELD. The guards in the Institute were frightened when they saw that the crying wooden sculpture was unharmed. They didn't know what to do and could only wait for reinforcements to arrive. After a while, Natasha and Clinton arrived with more than a dozen heavily armed people, each holding heavy weapons. As soon as they arrived, they first organized their people to move back and use binoculars to watch the weeping face wooden sculpture to keep it within sight. Is this the wooden sculpture with a crying face? It looks really weird. Clinton took a deep breath. There was a huge difference between watching it up close and watching it through a screen. As he spoke, he pointed his bow and arrow at the weeping face wooden sculpture, ready to shoot at any time. Don't blink. This monster will move at high speed and break our necks in the blink of an eye. If anyone wants to blink, please explain in advance and take turns. Natasha calmed down and explained the precautions. After hearing this, all the guards felt very baffled. They would die if they blinked. Is this making up a fairy tale? At this time, 2 guards came out with 2 rocket launchers, squatting on the ground and aiming at the weeping wooden sculpture. This is not an ordinary rocket launcher, but the result of scientists working day and night to study the Rubik's Cube, which can fire powerful laser cannons. The power is enough to penetrate the building and destroy the tank, which is much stronger than the anti-tank rocket launcher. Nick Fury is very confident that the crying wood sculpture will be destroyed under such a laser cannon. Fire! Natasha immediately ordered, and 2 laser cannons fired dazzling lasers at the same time to bombard the crying wood sculpture. Boom! This caused a lot of power, the dazzling light spread, the dust rolled, and the explosion wave spread like a storm, blowing away the tables and chairs. Fortunately, Natasha and the others retreated dozens of meters away in time, otherwise they would be involved. Tony's villa. After seeing the laser cannon, Tony Stark had to open his eyes wide and showed a bit of fanaticism. My God, this is a weapon of S.H.I.E.L.D., these guys have something I don't know. Tony Stark, who always thought he was ahead of everyone in technology, ended up with these 2 laser cannons of S.H.I.E.L.D. slapped him in the face. It seems that this organization that claims to protect the world still has something. But I'm more curious about this monster. It's so hard that it's undoubtedly the best choice for armor. As a weapons researcher, Tony Stark soon became very interested in the structure of the crying wood carving. But he remembered his palladium poisoning, and the enthusiasm was instantly extinguished. If this problem is not handled properly, it will be useless no matter how much research he does. No, I must find a way to heal my body. I still have a lot of things to do. Tony Stark, recover immediately. He felt that things would not end like this, and there would definitely be a lot of things to happen later, and he couldn't die yet. Huff, first I have to clean up my appearance. Tony Stark finally ignited his passion for life and decided to wash up and then go find Nick Fury. Doraemon World. Doraemon, that laser is so powerful, the crying wood carving will be destroyed. Nobita couldn't help asking excitedly. As a coward who was afraid of ghosts, he didn't want this terrible creature to continue to exist in this world. It's hard to say. However, Doraemon put his hand under his mouth and looked uncertain, always feeling that it was not that simple. But he was very confused about one thing. No country in this era has developed laser weapons. It took decades for someone to finally develop it. How could someone in the 20th century develop it? Moreover, he checked the Encyclopedia of the Future and found no containment objects. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have thought he was being pranked. Did the timeline change? At this moment, Doraemon had to get nervous. Leo World. What new weapon is this? If there is such a weapon, it will be easier to deal with aliens and monsters. Feng Yuan looked at the laser cannon in the picture with excitement. This weapon is much more powerful than the one used by the MAC team now. Every time the MAC team encounters alien invasions and monsters, they suffer heavy casualties. If there is such a powerful weapon, they can definitely solve it before the aliens or monsters become huge, reducing casualties. Thinking of this, Feng Yuan couldn't help but complain to the foreign MAC team. Why don't they use such a good weapon quickly? Don't they know how hard they are on the front line? On the contrary, Zhu Xingtuan on the side was full of doubts. He didn't receive any notification that the MAC team was researching this kind of weapon. There is no shield. Will the Americans do something? Even the MAC team is hiding it. Zhu Xingtuan, who is familiar with the human nature of Earthlings, couldn't help but wonder if the Americans were repeating the nuclear deterrence and using it to threaten the whole world. That's not okay. One Piece world. Thousand Sunny. So cool. It's a laser. Luffy couldn't help but look at the screen with his eyes shining. The laser just now was so cool. It really hit his XP. They have lasers. Is this shield the headquarters of the Navy? Frankie asked in confusion when he saw this. In his cognition, only the Navy has such technology. That's troublesome. This may be the Navy's new weapon to deal with pirates. Robin immediately looked worried. Hey, what should we do? It's so powerful that we'll die if we get hit. Usopp and Chopper immediately shouted in fear. Of course we hit it. What's more, now is not the time to talk about this. Will the monster die like this? Zoro looked at the screen with a fuzzy heart and couldn't help but hold the handle tightly. Navy headquarters. These people actually have laser weapons. Sengoku looked at the screen in shock. He is not unfamiliar with lasers. Kizaru next to him can fire them, and they are also the basic standard for pacifists. But this mysterious organization can actually use lasers as firearms, which makes Sengoku very nervous. If this is a new weapon of the Revolutionary Army or the pirates, it will be a big trouble and will definitely cause great chaos. Marshal, we can't find any information about S.H.I.E.L.D. A Marine ran in to report. Continue investigating. This must be a very dangerous organization. We must not let it develop. Otherwise, it will affect world peace. Sengoku ordered again that he must find S.H.I.E.L.D. no matter what. He must not let such a powerful weapon fall into the hands of dangerous elements. It must be held by the Navy representing justice. S.H.I.E.L.D. It's done now. This monster will definitely be blown into pieces. Arrange personnel to study the pieces. Such a hard material is very useful. Nick Fury sat in his office chair with a relaxed look on his face. He had already thought about how to deal with it later. He had absolute confidence in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s new weapon, and it happened to be tested today. However, the sound of many broken bones coming from the screen interrupted Nick Fury's fantasy. In the institute, the necks of more than a dozen security guards in the last row were twisted almost at the same time. In less than 2 seconds, the whole row of people died. The people in front reacted and turned around, but they saw nothing but corpses on the ground. Disperse immediately. Seeing this scene, Natasha knew what was going on and quickly gave the order. Crack, crack. However, when she spoke, the necks of the guards were constantly broken. It was not until the voice fell that the rest knew to disperse quickly and look around for the crying wood sculpture. Clinton looked around. He had amazing eyesight and suddenly noticed a black shadow passing by and moved over immediately. He saw the crying wood sculpture right in front of him, and the earthen hands were about to touch him. In other words, death was at hand. Clinton was so scared that he turned pale and almost blinked with cold sweat. Natasha saw that the crying wood sculpture was so close to Clinton and turned pale. If it was a little later, Clinton would be finished. Looking at the corpses on the ground, all the guards died in just a few seconds, leaving only Natasha and Clinton standing. This horrible killing speed and the tragic state of the dead made the two people still in shock. Huff, huff. The heavy breathing sounded continuously, and the two tried to keep calm and tried not to blink while staring at the crying wood sculpture. They were very scared. In just a blink of an eye, this thing would teleport to an unknown place and kill all the remaining people. The audience was stunned when they saw this. They didn't see how the crying wood sculpture killed so many people. The world of Naruto, tavern. What the hell are these people doing? Don't they know that smoke will block the line of sight? Naruto stood up and shouted angrily. It was because the explosion just now interrupted the line of sight that caused heavy casualties. Idiot, keep your voice down. Jiraiya held Naruto with an anxious face, and apologized to the other people in the tavern with a smile. What weapon did they use just now? That power is much stronger than many ninjutsu. Tsunade stared at the screen intently. She already knew the ability of the crying wood sculpture. She was more curious about the laser cannon just now. She had never seen such a weapon before. When I traveled around the world, I saw weapons such as muskets, but they were far inferior to those on the screen, and these people seemed to be from Western countries. Jiraiya looked serious. Although he had been to Western countries, he didn't know much about them. If this is really what is happening in the country across the sea, it would be a bit bad. There may be a conflict with the country on this side one day. This is not because Jiraiya has a persecution delusion, but because he has seen too many wars and has to be careful. Once many people have powerful weapons, they can't help but try them, and even violently conquer weaker beings. Leo World. Feng Yuan looked at the crying-faced wooden sculpture with a shocked expression. You can't kill such a powerful weapon. What kind of alien is this? And you can't just use high-power weapons to bomb. Feng Yuan felt his scalp numb at the thought of the danger of his own death caused by the explosion of the weapon. Zhu Xingtuan's face became increasingly ugly. He had visited many planets and had never heard of such a thing. What happened to the universe when I couldn't return to the Kingdom of Light? Not knowing anything, Zhu Xingtuan couldn't help but stomp the ground with his crutch in annoyance, which frightened Feng Yuan next to him and jumped away reflexively. Batman base. Bruce Wayne shook his head. It's too reckless. Since we know that this creature can't look away, we can't keep everyone on the same level. We should disperse in advance. If Bruce Wayne personally dealt with such a monster, he would definitely not make the same mistake. Then he continued to play with the computer. He had already created the documents for the anti-crying wood carving plan. He collected all the information and studied various countermeasures. Such a creature must have perfect countermeasures specified. It's just that when did the United States make a laser cannon? Bruce Wayne couldn't help but worry. Based on his understanding of those politicians, he didn't think the United States would use laser cannons. Even if it doesn't start a war, it will be exposed to criminals. Thinking of this, Bruce Wayne once again created a brand new document. Laser Weapon Development and Countermeasures Program. Marvel Asgard. Haha, father, this creature is quite interesting. How about I catch it and give it to you as a collection? It just so happens that the atrium is our domain, and the people there need us. Thor, the god of thunder, said carelessly, eager to show off the heroism of a king rescuing civilians. As for the characteristics of the crying face wood carving, he is not afraid of it. No matter how hard it is, can it be stronger than Thor's hammer made by the dying star? If you move instantly, wouldn't it be great if I hold the tape and open my eyes to stare at you? He didn't believe that he, the god of thunder, couldn't break this thing. Wait a minute, Thor. Don't act recklessly, Odin scolded, dissatisfied. In his opinion, there was no need to worry about the Ancient One Master on Earth who hadn't taken action yet. When everyone was looking at the screen, they didn't notice that Loki was looking absent-mindedly in other directions of the Asgard, not knowing what he was waiting for. At this time, in the screen, a bunch of greetings from Nick Fury continued to float by. Nick Fury. Shit, how are we going to destroy this thing? Do we need to use missiles? Diana. I think you'd better not do this, otherwise it will only expand the scope of harm. Nick Fury. So what do you say you should do, and who are you? Diana. You should tell me who you are and what S.H.I.E.L.D. is, but that's not the point. Since this thing can't be destroyed, maybe it can be imprisoned. Nick Fury. Incarceration, how to imprison something like this? Loki. Stupid human being, you know how this wooden sculpture called the Weeping Face moves, and you still ask such a question. Nick Fury. Line of sight. Do we need to arrange for people to monitor this thing 24/7? Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but feel numb. There are people staring at this monster all the time, and it makes me feel uncomfortable just thinking about it. Even if it only takes a few people to stare at it together, it will be fine, but who can guarantee that if someone suddenly blinks collectively, everything will be over? Bruce Wayne. Don't forget that you can also use surveillance cameras. If the condition is line of sight contact, then maybe you can do it through the camera. Nick Fury took a deep breath after hearing this. Since he couldn't find a way to destroy it, he had no choice but to do this for now, and then picked up the walkie-talkie and gave the order. Natasha, Clinton, find a way to move this thing to the nearby laboratory. After hearing this, Natasha had to wonder, how could this thing move without letting it move on its own? I'll try to see if I can move it. Natasha, don't blink. Clinton took a deep breath and made up his mind to try to lift the wooden sculpture of the crying face. Ouch, it's so heavy. Clinton tried his best to move the wooden sculpture with a crying face only a little. At this time, Natasha noticed that there was a trolley next to her, so she kept watching the wooden sculpture of the crying face and went to get the trolley. Together with Clinton, they pushed the wooden sculpture of the crying face onto it, and then pushed it towards the nearest laboratory. Go. This simple process was so thrilling that neither of them dared to look away. If they felt like blinking, they quickly opened their eyelids to prevent the crying wooden sculpture from having any chance to move. Afterwards, they successfully placed the weeping face wooden sculpture in the laboratory and quickly backed away, while not forgetting to keep a close eye on the weeping face wooden sculpture. At this time, Nick Fury and Hill had arrived in the monitoring room, and everyone was watching the crying wooden sculpture through the monitoring room. They had all seen the previous tragedy and did not dare to be careless. Now close the laboratory door and activate the highest level of lockdown. Nick Fury took a deep breath after giving the order, and now he wanted to try to see if he could stop the crying face wooden sculpture from moving through the surveillance camera. Clinton immediately pressed the button and the lab door closed immediately. The moment it was closed, everyone was on tenterhooks and paid attention to their surroundings, fearing that the crying wooden sculpture would teleport out, but fortunately, this guess did not come true. The crying-faced wooden sculpture really stood motionless in the laboratory because of the surveillance. Seeing this scene, the staff in the monitoring room breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but close their eyes. At this moment, they realized something was wrong and quickly opened their eyes. Boom! There was a violent crashing sound from the surveillance camera, as if it hit everyone's heart. Take a closer look. The wooden sculpture of the crying face is no longer where it was. My, where has he gone? Why is everyone looking away? When Nick Fury saw that the crying face wooden sculpture was missing, he shouted angrily that it would be troublesome if this thing ran out again. Director, it's in the corner. At this time, Hill pointed at the screen and said. After hearing this, everyone looked over and saw that the wooden sculpture with a crying face was indeed motionless in the corner of the room. Everyone was relieved to see that the wooden sculpture of the crying face was still there, but no one dared to blink. How sturdy is this laboratory? Nick Fury asked worriedly. Director, this is constructed of space station materials and is strong enough to withstand missile bombing. Another staff member replied. That's okay. Arrange people to take turns monitoring this monster. Never look away. Report before blinking. Take turns. And arrange for scientists to study this creature. Nick Fury immediately issued an order and arranged for someone to handle the matter. The powerful ability of the contained object, the crying-faced woodcarving, made him frightened. Fortunately, its weaknesses are also obvious and easy to imprison. Who unleashed the monster? Nick Fury didn't understand where this monster came from. He had already asked someone to investigate the surveillance video and found that it appeared instantly and no one noticed it. Is it that screen? Nick Fury quickly returned to the office and looked at the screen. Who did this? Is it the monster he released? Now the scene is full of noise. Naruto. This monster is not that good either. As long as I use the shadow clone technique, he can't do anything to me. Loki. You also know how to do clone magic. Naruto. What magic? It's ninjutsu. Luffy. Ninjutsu. It's so cool that you are a ninja. Naruto. Thanks for the compliment. Bruce Wayne. Ninja. Shadow clone. Bruce Wayne's face was full of questions when he saw this. He had joined the most powerful ninja alliance, but he had never heard of a shadow clone. Maybe it's just a cover-up used by two people. And what does Loki mean by magic? Luffy. This monster is really strange. I think it will be very exciting to play with him. Chopper. Luffy, please don't say stupid things. You don't want your head when you play with something like this. Luffy. I'm rubber, I'm not afraid of twisting my neck. Chopper. That's right, Uzumaki Naruto. Rubber, what do you mean? Luffy. I'm a rubber man. Even my bones are made of rubber, so I'm not afraid of twisting my neck. Bruce Wayne. How is this possible? How is it possible for humans to turn into rubber? Luffy. Because I ate a devil fruit. After seeing Luffy's message, a bunch of question marks crossed it. Fungyuan. Devil fruit. What is that? Mordo. Is it a devil's fruit? If you eat it, it turns into rubber. That's a curse. Zoro. It is indeed a curse. You will gain strength after eating it, but you will lose your physical strength when you touch the sea. Modu. What? Is there such a thing? Sanji. Are you a country boy? Isn't it common sense that you can gain the power of a devil by eating a devil fruit? Why don't you know anything? Thor. What common sense? Devil's fruit is very hard to eat. Who would eat it if they have nothing to do? Sengoku. What nonsense are you talking about? The point is, what is shield? Is it an organization of the Revolutionary Army or under the banner of pirates? Let me tell you, as long as our Navy is here, don't even think about doing anything to this world. Quote. Clinton, are you in the Navy? Where are you from? And why does the Navy have to do with the world structure? Why do you talk about things like the Revolutionary Army and pirates from the last century? Usopp. Hey, what you said is wrong. Being a pirate is every man's dream. It's not from the last century. Nico Robin. The Revolutionary Army is the most wanted criminal in the world, triggering revolutionary wars everywhere. How could you not know? Jiraiya. Wait a minute, who would dream of being a pirate? And I've never heard of a revolutionary army. Nick Fury. This is not the feudal era, where can the Revolutionary Army come from? Warring States. Are you kidding me? Nick Fury's face became quite gloomy when he saw that Sengoku spoke so rudely. Which navy dares to speak like this? It is indeed a beautiful country's military, but it is difficult to deal with. It's just that he can understand pirates, but what are devil fruits? Magic. And what about the Revolutionary Army? Nowadays, they are nothing more than rioting war elements from a small country. While Nick Fury was thinking about everything, his phone rang. It was Tony Stark calling. Hey, what's up, Stark? I want to study that creature called the Weeping Face wood sculpture. Its powerful body defense makes me want to find out what material it is made of. After hearing this, Nick Fury was about to refuse, but then he thought that Tony Stark was the best scientist and arms dealer. If he helped with the research, he might be able to figure out something. So I agreed immediately. 600th World Batman Base. Bruce Wayne is sorting out all kinds of information, including the conversation just now. The Crying Face woodcarving, devil fruit, magic, ninjutsu, Revolutionary Army, they all don't know what each other is saying. As the best detective, Bruce Wayne felt that things were not simple and he was making deductions. He felt that something was missing before he could successfully deduct. Just then he remembered what the screen said at the beginning. Different universe. Don't tell me. That statement is true. Bruce Wayne looked at the screen in shock. If that were the case, it would all make sense. Taj. Ji Yuyi was relieved when she saw that S.H.I.E.L.D. had successfully imprisoned the crying wooden sculpture. If S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't handle it, she wouldn't mind taking action herself and sending the thing to the mirror space or exiled to other worlds. Master Ji Yuyi, what do you think is going on? Is that thing that looks like a statue a curse from the devil? Modu asked doubtfully. I've read all the books and never heard of any crying-faced wood carvings with similar abilities. The king also spoke. The multiverse is vast, and our knowledge is just a drop in the ocean. It's normal to have things we don't know. I probably understand what this screen is about. Ji Yuyi replied confidently. As he spoke, he couldn't help but have a sad look in his eyes. At this time, there was a particularly offensive text on the screen. Vegeta, is this the weapon of you Earthlings? It's really ridiculous. It's impossible to scare us Saiyans with this kind of thing. I can destroy this thing with just one finger. Earthlings, just go ahead and do this boring thing. Struggle, this is the carnival before your demise. Vegeta's words made everyone confused. Piccolo then sends a message. Piccolo, Saiyan, just come, I will definitely defeat you. Dragon Ball World. In a wasteland, Piccolo looked at the screen seriously, looking at the wooden sculptures of crying faces, and almost forgot about the Saiyan invasion. Sun Wukong. That's right. I won't let you invade the Earth. Vegeta. Ha ha ha. Interesting, let me see what you can do, don't let me down. This conversation shocked everyone. What did they see? Aliens were going to attack the Earth at this time. S.H.I.E.L.D. Saiyans. Are they Chris? Contact the space station immediately to inquire about the situation outside the Earth. Nick Fury immediately ordered. He had experienced the invasion of the Chris and had some experience in alien invasion. Asgard. Heimdall, are there aliens approaching the Earth? Odin shouted immediately. No, sir. Heimdall looked around the Earth. No aliens were approaching. Doraemon World. Doraemon, there is an alien invasion. What should I do? Nobita shouted in a panic, not knowing what to do. Don't worry, let me take a look. There's nothing. Doraemon controlled the advanced monitor to check the situation in the universe but found nothing. Is that person talking nonsense? Leo's World. The stars immediately investigated the radar, but there was no alien approaching at all. But he wasn't careless, maybe he just wasn't close yet. The MAC team members will come back immediately, there is an alien invasion. Just in case, the stars immediately called everyone back. Just then Ji Yi spoke. Ancient One. Don't be nervous, everyone. This Vegeta belongs to the Dragon Ball universe and has nothing to do with other universes. After hearing Ji Yi's words, not only did everyone not get the answer, but they became even more confused. Ancient One. Look carefully at the prefix of your name to see if there are any other words. After everyone listened and looked carefully at the text, there were indeed other words in front of the name. There are 7 different words: Marvel, DC, Naruto, One Piece, Doraemon, Ultraman and Dragon Ball. Ancient One. Do you still remember what the screen said at the beginning about different universes? This means that we are not in the same universe. I think these 7 words are different names for the universe, and the names behind these words are the people in that universe. This Vegeta's name has Dragon Ball in front of it, which means that he belongs to the Dragon Ball universe, which means that those who want to resist his invasion are Piccolo and Sun Wukong, who also have Dragon Ball vocabulary. Quote. After hearing Ji Yi's explanation, some people suddenly understood, but more people were still very confused. Marvel World. Tony was on a plane heading to S.H.I.E.L.D., looking at the screen. Different universes, the multiverse is actually real. Tony shouted excitedly, scaring the stewardess next to him. As an excellent scientist, Tony's ability to accept things is faster than anyone else. He doesn't have many doubts, but is full of excitement. At the same time, he couldn't help but look confused. Who is this woman named Ancient One? She is a top scholar who knows so much about the multiverse that he doesn't know. S.H.I.E.L.D. After Nick Fury figured it out, his expression was quite bad, as if his brain was not full. Things in one universe were already bad enough, but now we have to create a multiverse, which is really confusing. Is there any problem? Batman base. It is as expected. Bruce Wayne couldn't help but beat his fists excitedly. It was great that other people could think of his own ideas. I don't know who this Ji Yi is. But Bruce Wayne immediately calmed down, lowered his head and pondered, involving different universes, who could put up such a screen? No, is that still something humans can do? Diana's apartment. Diana looked at the Ancient One's explanation on the screen. As a demigod, she certainly knows about the multiverse. After all, in the distant past, there was a dark monarch who conquered many universes and invaded the Earth. Then what kind of existence is this screen made by? And what is it for? Diana thought doubtfully, and then he remembered the words in front of the screen. Is this a warning? Diana quickly understood what was going on, and her expression gradually became serious. Leo's world. Feng Yuan looked at the star clusters in confusion. Captain, do you think it's true that this person is called Ancient One? Zhu Xingtuan took 2 steps and thought for a moment before replying. I once heard the captain say that there is indeed a universe outside the universe. As long as the speed exceeds the expansion speed of the universe, you can get out of the universe and go to other universes. What? To exceed the expansion speed of the universe? Feng Yuan was shocked after hearing this. How could this be possible? The expansion speed of the universe is many times the speed of light. Even Ultraman cannot exceed it. If we gather all the energy of the Kingdom of Light, we can do it. However, what Zhu Xingtuan said next made Feng Yuan instantly dumbfounded. All the energy of the Kingdom of Light can pass through the universe. What a secret there is in this hometown of 7 that he has never been to. Zhu Xingtuan ignored Feng Yuan and stared at the screen. If this screen really invites people from different universes to watch, then how terrifying the existence behind it is something that only the legendary Ultra King can deal with, right? At this moment, the star clusters had to be under great pressure, feeling as if they were facing an unknown and terrifying opponent. Doraemon world. Doraemon, what do they mean? Nobita's face was full of doubts. He was not smart to begin with. It would be nice if his brain didn't explode after hearing such a professional explanation. Nobita, have you forgotten that we have been on a space adventure? In fact, there is not just one universe, but many. Doraemon wants to explain, but Nobita looks confused. It's just like a telephone booth. A telephone booth can create parallel universes. There are many universes that are not created by a telephone booth but exist by themselves. Doraemon changed his explanation, and Nobita immediately looked enlightened. Doraemon didn't know what to say, so he could only shake his head and sigh. However, some people still don't understand. Luffy. Universe. What is that? Tsunade. I've never heard of such a thing. Vegeta. Don't fool people, how can there be many in the universe? Gyuyi couldn't help but sigh helplessly when he saw this. It seems that people in some worlds don't even know about the universe, or they don't want to believe it. So he explained patiently, everyone knows the stars and the sun, right? The huge space that accommodates the stars and the sun, including the world we live in, is called the universe, and there is more than one universe. They are adjacent to each other but cannot travel between them. Navy headquarters. Hey, who of you can understand this? Akainu asked a little irritably. I'm afraid only Vegapunk can understand this. Invite him over immediately. Sengoku couldn't figure it out, so he could only ask Vegapunk to deal with it. Could this be like an empty island? There are empty islands on top of the empty islands. They keep stacking up to form the true face of the world that we don't know at all. Kizaru took a sip of hot tea and analyzed it carefully. Hearing this, Sengoku couldn't help but walk out the window and look at the sky. There are still empty islands on empty islands. Thinking about it like this, Warring States suddenly got goosebumps, and he instantly felt quite insignificant. Aboard the Thousand Sunny, Luffy, Chopper, Usopp, Zoro, and Brook all looked confused, and it was hard to figure out what it meant. Sanji kept smoking, trying to digest the information as much as possible. Dr. O'Hara once proposed the concept of the universe. Then Robin spoke, and everyone looked at her. The doctor once said that our world is a sphere, and there are other spheres in this sphere, just like the sun and the moon. What holds these things is called the universe. Robin explained as best he could. Naruto world. Naruto looked at Jiraiya in confusion, hoping for an explanation. However, Jiraiya didn't know what to say. His face was full of embarrassment, but he couldn't embarrass himself in front of his disciples. Not to mention how entangled he was, he could only avoid looking at him. Would this be like the pure land of ultimate bliss? At this time, Tsunade took a sip of wine and spoke. The world is not just what we see, there are many other worlds like the pure land of paradise. Is this what the so-called universe is all about? Hearing this, Jiraiya immediately understood. Oh, yes, that's what I wanted to say, but you beat me to it, ha 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 ha. Hearing Jiraiya's words, Tsunade just rolled her eyes helplessly, and then looked at the screen. In this case, things would become more and more complicated. At this time, the cold voice sounded on the screen again. Congratulations on the successful containment of the weeping face woodcarving. Now the rewards will be distributed. The distribution of rewards will be determined based on the performance. The main contributors, Natasha Romanoff and Clinton Patton, were awarded the Razor Mask and Falling Star pose respectively. The Razor Mask is one of the ghost masks. It can summon countless ghost soldiers with spiked knives to fight. The mask itself will corrode the user's will, but after being processed by the system, there will be no side effects. The Falling Star style is a bow skill in a certain world. An arrow flies into the air and turns into countless meteors falling down. It is a very useful group attack method. After the voice ended, a scary-looking purple mask appeared in Natasha's hand, while Clinton had a lot of information popping up in his mind and felt as if something had changed in his body. What kind of mask is this? Natasha put on the mask in confusion, and then an idea occurred. Many shadows appeared around her feet, and the shadows stood up from the ground, forming black soldiers with sharp claws on their hands and red eyes. Seeing this scene, the people around were frightened and walked away, nervously looking at the group of shadow soldiers. There were crying wooden sculptures in front of them and shadow monsters behind them. What on earth was going on? Natasha, you summoned this. Clinton looked on in shock and couldn't help but set up his bow and arrow to prepare for defense. It seems so. Natasha also looked at these shadow soldiers with sharp claws in confusion. Then they all knelt down to Natasha to show their loyalty. Natasha was so frightened that she couldn't help but take a step back. At this time, Natasha noticed that the claws of several ghost soldiers pierced the floor. This was a floor paved with high-quality steel. The bullets could only leave craters. How could they be pierced so easily? These so-called ghost soldiers don't seem to be simple. Clinton saw that these ghost soldiers listened to Natasha, so he temporarily relaxed his vigilance and sorted out the information in his mind. Falling star style, an arrow turns into a shooting star. Is this magic? Clinton walked to the window and looked at the sky. He had a desire in his heart, which was to confirm this so-called falling star pattern. So he couldn't help but lift the arrow and shoot it out the window. Crack! The arrow pierced the glass and flew into the sky. Seemingly nothing happened. How is it possible? Seeing this, Clinton couldn't help but smile to himself. But the next second, a scene that shocked him appeared. The arrows that flew out actually turned into more than a dozen meteors and fell from the sky, about to hit the shield building. Chapter 11. More than a dozen meteors are about to hit the shield building. This scene can scare many people. Not good. Natasha couldn't help but scream when she saw this scene. At this moment, her clawed ghost soldiers seemed to have received the order and turned into shadows one after another, ran out from the gap in the window, then returned to their human form and jumped towards the beam. Bang bang bang. The ghost soldier uses himself as a shield to block all beams. Each beam set off a powerful explosion. This power, it's more powerful than a rocket launcher. Hawkeye looked at the power of the explosion in shock, unable to believe that he had done it himself. Ahem. After the shock, he suddenly felt very tired and couldn't help but kneel down, and then felt a sharp pain in his arm. Is this a side effect of falling star? Hawkeye immediately understood what was going on. Oh my god, what happened just now? Did Agent Patton do it? It's so awesome. Thankfully there are those shadow monsters, but what are they? The staff in the office looked at the situation outside with shocked faces. There was so much information that their brains could not process it. Barton, are you okay? Natasha helped Hawkeye up and said in concern. I'm fine, but it's your little brothers. Hawkeye looked out the window guiltily, seeing those ghost soldiers being blown into black smoke. He had to take a breath, not even the body was left. What a terrifying power. Natasha couldn't help but lower her head. Although she was exposed to the ghost soldiers for the first time, they belonged to her after all. It would be sad to die suddenly like this. But at this moment, the black smoke floating in the air suddenly flew back to Natasha, and then regrouped into a human shape and knelt down. This scene scared the others. How could they be resurrected after being blown to ashes? Is it because they are just shadows, not normal life? Natasha quickly understood what was going on, and then couldn't help but take off her mask and take a closer look. This is not common sense at all. Is it magic? At this moment, her worldview was greatly impacted. Natasha, Barton, come in with me immediately. At this time, Nick Fury ran over anxiously. He had seen what happened on the surveillance camera, and his expression was not very good. The powerful beam and the invincible soldiers were both of great significance, so he immediately took the two of them back to his office. Everyone, listen, the director just ordered that all the surveillance footage just now be deleted. If anyone dares to keep it or even leaks it, you know what will happen. After Hill glanced at everyone and gave a warning, he immediately followed Fury. The others looked at each other in shock after hearing this, and then immediately pretended that nothing had happened and immersed themselves in work. However, no one noticed that a person was secretly sending two videos, one of the crying wood carving and the other of what happened just now. There are a lot of barrages on the screen at this time. Luffy, hey, what do you mean by the reward you just mentioned? Naruto, rewards are given for completing tasks. Isn't this the same as when we ninjas accept tasks? Tony Stark, Natasha, you still want to call Barton, what exactly did you get? Nick Fury, sorry, this is top secret and it's not convenient to disclose it. Tony Stark, the more you talk about it, the more curious I become. When I get there, I want to see what it is. Nick Fury, whatever. Nick Fury already knows the value of Zora's mask and falling star, how could he say it casually? With these two, he can guarantee that S.H.I.E.L.D. can better protect the world. But he also had to wonder what was behind the screen. Being able to conjure items and grant skills out of thin air made him even more wary, and at the same time he couldn't help but wonder what he could get if he could complete more containment. He had a hunch that this might be an opportunity for S.H.I.E.L.D. Taj. Ji Yuyi shook his fan and said with a smile, it seems that the existence behind this screen is helping us. What? Modu was confused after hearing this. Ji Yuyi did not explain, but continued to look at the screen content. At this time, Xie Yun was over there. The containment object crying face wood sculpture was successfully contained. Host Xie Yun was rewarded with the high-speed movement of the crying face wood sculpture. A system prompt came to Xie Yun's mind. At this moment, he suddenly felt that everything around him had become very slow. To be precise, he had become faster. Awesome! Xie Yun couldn't help but clenched his fists with excitement, looking forward to the rewards for subsequent successful containment. People from all worlds should work harder. The next contained object is about to appear, carnivorous vines, carnivorous vines. When this sentence appeared on the screen, everyone calmed down and looked at the screen. At the same time, they were shocked by the number of carnivorous vines. 600th world. Bruce Wayne looked at the number in shock. He originally thought there were more than 100 contained items, but he didn't expect there to be hundreds. How many more were there? While he was thinking, his hands were not idle, ready to record everything he saw. Carnivorous vine is a climbing plant that looks like ivy, with yellow-green rhizomes and purple leaves. The canes lay down a root approximately every 30.5 centimeters 12 inches. These roots can penetrate most porous materials, except metal. Once this kind of plant discovers that there are normal temperature creatures nearby, it will immediately grow and prey on them, and its reproductive ability is particularly strong. Its way of hunting is to first inject a certain liquid to paralyze the prey, then dissolve all muscles, internal organs in the prey, and then excrete it for absorption. Any plant part that is disconnected from the root system is confirmed to be dead and safe for closer inspection. But the rhizome will not die and can still regenerate even if it is chopped or burned. Then a picture appeared on the screen, showing a peaceful-looking town. There are several robins building nests in the picture, which look quite cute. Such a harmonious scene made everyone feel confused and didn't understand what it had to do with the so-called contained objects. But in the next second, something happened. 3 thick and long vines suddenly appeared under the trees and instantly caught the robins. Before they could react, the vines instantly crushed them into pulp and were sucked into the vines. All the viewers couldn't help but open their mouths after watching this scene. What kind of plant is this? How come it can grow so fast without watering or fertilizing? On the screen, some passers-by were attracted and couldn't help but take pictures out of curiosity. But their actions hastened the tragedy. I saw the ivy multiplying rapidly and splitting into more vines, quickly grabbing the passers-by around them. Then the group of passers-by struggled at first, but in the end they seemed unable to move and all their movements stopped. Then a strange liquid continued to flow out of the body and was sucked in by ivy. The body quickly shrunk and finally cracked like paper. After eating more than a dozen passers-by, the size of the ivy instantly expanded more than 10 times. Dozens of extremely thick vines were constantly squirming as if they were alive, looking for the next target. Soon, nearby passers-by, vehicles, and birds flying in the sky all became the targets of ivy. Their rapid reproduction and division have no end, swallowing up any life that passes by. Even across buildings, cars, or even sewers, ivy can break through earth and rocks to catch prey. In less than 10 minutes, this weird plant grew to the size of a forest. The prey of the contained carnivorous vines has rapidly reproduced, leaving everyone stunned. This completely goes beyond biology, the law of conservation of mass, and completely overturns botanical knowledge. Marvel World, on a private jet. How is this possible? How can plants have such amazing growth capabilities? And they are so destructive. Tony Stark couldn't help but stood up excitedly, frightening the stewardess who came to serve him. Tony Stark ignored them and stared at the screen, watching the brutality of the carnivorous vines. It was simply hell. No one could avoid the pursuit of the vines. Once caught, there would be no chance to scream. There are ivy everywhere in this world, don't you think so? The more Tony Stark thought about it, the more panicked he became, and he immediately contacted Jarvis. Jarvis, check all areas where ivy is bred, even if you use certain permissions. Shield. Nick Fury also immediately used his authority to investigate around the world to ensure that there was no reproduction of this plant. But it's just a plant after all. It can be solved with gunpowder. Nick Fury didn't pay much attention. This was much easier to deal with than the crying wood carving. He didn't believe that a mere plant could withstand weapons like cannonballs. One Piece World, Navy Headquarters. Plant, I can solve it with the 8-foot Magatama. Kizaru didn't take it seriously. Indeed, even if you are not an esper, you can still use cannonballs. Warring States also felt unimpressed. The so-called contained objects this time were not very good. 600th World. Bruce Wayne is anxiously checking every surveillance camera. There are Wayne Enterprise cameras everywhere in Gotham City. He can see every corner of Gotham City at any time. The ability of carnivorous vines reminded him of his old rival Poison Ivy, who was also a plant enemy. No one knew better than him how big a threat it was. How is that possible? How long has it been? When Bruce Wayne glanced at the screen, his expression turned extremely ugly. How long had it passed? This terrifying plant had already taken over most of the town. A population of tens of thousands is almost turning into a dead city. There are many people on the screen trying to resist. Various herbicides were used, chainsaws were used to chop, and guns were fired. Some people even threw gasoline bottles and set fire to them, creating explosions in an attempt to destroy the ivy. However, these various methods of restraining the plants had no effect on the carnivorous vines. Instead, they seemed to anger the carnivorous vines, forcing them to reproduce even more vigorously. In less than 5 minutes, the entire town turned into an ivy jungle. Not just on the surface, but even in the sewers, rats and workers alike cannot escape. Now the ivy seems to be unable to find food and has temporarily stopped reproducing. When a creature, even a bird, passes by, it will immediately grow a vine again. This terrifying plant makes it difficult for those who still despised it at first to say anything. The Marvel Universe, S.H.I.E.L.D. What the hell? Nick Fury had to scream in shock when he saw that this plant was not afraid of flames and explosions. There was a big explosion at a gas station on the screen just now. The explosion power of a gas station was very terrifying, but it was unable to have any effect on the carnivorous vines. Instead, it was extinguished. Doesn't this mean that even if we send out tanks, even if we use missiles, it will be useless? Who said this is easier to deal with than the crying woodcarving? Nick Fury's face turned dark, and his facial features were once again unclear. The crying face woodcarving can also be dealt with through visual contact, but this carnivorous vine has no such weakness and is not afraid of fire. How to deal with it? This would be even better if it were placed in a more densely populated big city. Nick Fury couldn't help but tremble at the thought of carnivorous vines multiplying everywhere in the United States. The town on the screen seems to be a town in the United States. Just now, a wooden sculpture with a crying face appeared here. Isn't it possible that they will be here next? Immediately mobilize all satellite inspections, even if it violates certain permissions. The more Nick Fury thought about it, the more panicked he became, and he gave instructions to Hill without hesitation. Taj, Master Ancient One, how to deal with this kind of creature? Strange's face was full of shock, and his lips were trembling. It seems that this kind of creature that is beyond the common sense of biology is not something that humans can fight against. Don't worry, no matter how powerful I am, I'm just a plant. After all, I have some weaknesses that I can't get rid of. However, Ji Yi didn't take it seriously. As the supreme mage who protects the world, she has dealt with many monsters, including plants. I know exactly how to deal with it. I just don't know how to fight against the world on the screen. Asgard, brother, do you think you can deal with this bunch of plants? Loki suddenly asked with a wicked smile. Of course, I am Thor, the god of thunder. After Thor heard this, he immediately raised Mjolnir with an invincible look. In front of my lightning, this thing will only be blown to pieces by me. After hearing this, Loki just clapped and turned his head with a sneer. He actually really wanted to see what his stupid big brother would do against this plant. It would be best if he died along with it. Thor, stop messing around. Odin shouted dissatisfied, and then looked at the huge carnivorous vines. He has been in the 9 realms for many years and has seen many strange plants, but none of them are as good as carnivorous vines. Why can such a monster appear in a mere atrium? But Odin didn't care. He was holding the most powerful weapon in the 9 realms, Odin's spear. One shot could definitely destroy the carnivorous vines. Even if he doesn't take action, he can still do it if he uses the power of the Rainbow Bridge. Leo's world. Feng Yuan looked at the terrifying carnivorous vines in shock. How to deal with such a monster that reproduces so quickly and is so tenacious? If it were placed in our own world, I'm afraid it could cover Japan in one day. Even monsters will be used as nutrients. How should I eliminate it myself? Leo's flying kick can't spread on such a large scale. Wouldn't it be necessary to use L-77 light in that case, but in that case the Earth would also be destroyed. The more Feng Yuan thought about it, the more anxious he became. He had no idea how to deal with this plant. Don't worry, this is a plant after all. At this time, Zhu Xingtuan spoke to comfort him. He has been traveling in the universe for many years, has seen plant-type enemies, and knows how to deal with them. Now that I have thought of it, I should also add the topic of training Feng Yuan. Dragon Ball World. On the snake path. Hey, is it such a powerful life force? I wonder if I can't destroy it with the turtle-style chi function. Sun Wukong looked at the carnivorous vines curiously. The horror of the carnivorous vines did not scare him, but instead raised a sense of fighting. No matter who his opponent was, if he felt strong, he would have thought of a few moves. In the universe, Vegeta snorted disdainfully. What the hell? Broken plants don't matter. As long as I destroy the Earth, it will cease to exist. At this time, many armed helicopters and transport planes appeared on the screen thousands of meters above the carnivorous vines. Written on their surface are the words Contained Object Containment Society. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw this. Everyone already knew that this screen was created by the so-called Containment Committee, but they didn't expect them to show up. What kind of strength do these beings have who can publish videos and make predictions across the universe? The answer will be revealed at this moment. Task Force Beta 7 is in place and is now launching cooling missiles. Electronic sounds came from the people inside the fighter plane. Each fighter plane aimed at a different location in the town and dropped small missiles one after another. After the pile of missiles landed, they sprayed out a large amount of mist, which spread throughout the town in a blink of an eye, turning it white. Anything within the fog is frozen into ice. Houses, grounds, cars, all without exception, and the same goes for carnivorous vines. The carnivorous vines that were able to resist any attack before and fought back angrily were now unable to resist the freezing ice. Even if the vines try to move, they will be immediately cooled into ice. Finally, more and more carnivorous vines and ivy kept cooling into ice. Then hundreds of soldiers wearing special forces uniforms and gas masks, holding extremely large devices that looked like rocket launchers, poured out from all directions. Their appearance caused the already frozen carnivorous vines to begin to struggle violently, and the ice on the surface was constantly breaking. Even if it is cooled to this point, once the prey is detected, the strange vitality will come into play. Continue to spray the freezing gas to stop it from rushing out. A man who looked like a captain immediately ordered. Then the weapon in his hand sprayed out a large amount of cold air, and others also used the same weapon. The carnivorous vines that had finally struggled to fall were once again frozen so tightly that it was difficult to escape. However, this group of soldiers from the shelter did not dare to be careless and continued to spray cooling gas to ensure that all carnivorous vines were completely frozen. Start cutting. Then one of the task force soldiers took out a chainsaw and cut. Obviously many people have tried to use this method to deal with carnivorous vines before, but all the results were that the chainsaw was cracked by the shock. However, this time it only took a little effort to cut through the vines of the carnivorous vine. The fallen part was still shaking, but now it is motionless. On the contrary, the remaining vines immediately grow new vines to fight back. Seeing this, the soldiers of the task force nearby quickly continued to spray ice mist to cool down. Note that the cut-off part of the containment object will not be alive, but the rest will still be there. Copy that. The missile bombing will begin in 30 seconds, and you should evacuate immediately. After the sound of the fighter planes came, they dropped missiles emitting ice mist again, ignoring the task force still in the town. However, in the ice fog, this group of task forces was not affected at all and immediately left the town. When the time came, all the fighter planes launched missiles and bombed every corner of the town mercilessly. At this moment, there were flames all around the town, countless rubble and sawdust were flying everywhere, and the ice cubes melted instantly. The originally peaceful town turned into a sea of purgatory fire at this moment. This scene made some people look shocked and couldn't help but comment. Feng Yuan, are you kidding me? You actually bombed it directly. I'm not sure if there are any survivors inside. Zhu Xingtuan, Feng Yuan, calm down. Although it's not a good thing to do, you can also see that when it spreads to that extent, I'm afraid there will be no survivors. Nick Fury. That's right. In such an extraordinary situation, rescue is no longer possible. Feng Yuan. But Feng Yuan didn't expect that even his own captain would say this, and he felt unwilling to do so. If there were still people alive inside, it would be life. The stars next to them sighed helplessly when they saw this. There were some things they couldn't help themselves. Warring states. Wait a minute. What is that flying thing? Were the shells fired just now? What kind of weapon is this? Jiraiya. There is such a powerful weapon, more powerful than S-level ninjutsu. Patton. What are you talking about? These are fighter planes and missiles. How could you not know? Natasha. Aren't you the Sengoku Marine? You don't understand this kind of Air Force weapon. Warring states. What Air Force? We don't have any Air Force. Jiraiya. Fighter. What is that? Luffy. Is this powered by a wind shell? It doesn't look like a ship like Enel, but it's so handsome. Frankie. Usopp and Chopper. Agree. It's a man's romance. Seeing these people's words, many people had to look confused. Who doesn't even know about fighter jets? Marvel World. Tony Stark looked at the screen in confusion. Are the people from the pirate universe and Naruto universe primitive? Wait a minute, one said pirate and the other said ninja, they can't really be ancient people. Tony Stark twitched the corner of his mouth. If that was the case, it would make sense. Why does this system find people from previous eras? It can't keep up with the dialogue of the times. It's very embarrassing, isn't it? One Piece World, Navy Headquarters. Sengoku looked at the words on the screen with a bad expression. Those people knew very well about things like fighter planes, but he didn't understand them at all. Speaking of flying tools, there are not many in this world. At most, they are large birds, or have the ability to move in the air similar to the moonwalk. The only thing that can be regarded as an air vehicle is a ship that relies on the ability of the Golden Lion Shiji to fly. This is called the speed of a fighter jet. It's faster than a ship. Kizaru couldn't help but admire. And the power of this missile is very terrifying. Akainu had a solemn look on his face. Only by attacking with all his strength could he achieve such an explosive attack that covered the town, but this missile seemed to be able to replace him easily. Such a terrifyingly powerful weapon made Akainu's eyes glow with greed. Marshal, I think we should also develop such a weapon. Only in this way can we fight pirates more effectively. Akainu said excitedly. Just imagine, pirates are running on the sea, the navy is chasing and bombing with fighter planes, and the other side has no chance to fight back. What a beautiful thing it is. Sengoku agreed with Akainu's view, and then decided to visit Vegapunk personally and let him study this weapon. At this time, in the picture, the town was transformed into a sea of fire, and many carnivorous vines fell down one after another. Everyone thought this was how the carnivorous vine crisis would be solved. But at this moment, a change occurred, and a large number of carnivorous vines suddenly appeared in the sea of fire, rushing towards the mobile task force. Release the ice mist quickly. Members of the mobile task force quickly sprayed ice fog to resist. But there were still many vines that fought against the ice fog and killed the task force members. At this moment, the fighter plane immediately launched cooling missiles to cool down the regrown vines again. Then they didn't dare to make any move. Missiles bombing the weak carnivorous vines not only fail to kill them, but also give them a chance to escape. The terrifying plant properties exceeded all expectations. Subsequently, conclusions were drawn based on the research of many scientists. As long as the rhizome of the carnivorous vine is still there, it will regenerate indefinitely, and the rhizome cannot be destroyed by any means. Therefore, in the final containment meeting, all the vines were cut off and the rhizomes were kept and taken away. The video stopped here, and then the cold voice sounded again. Now predict where carnivorous vines will appear. Everyone trembled when they heard this, especially Nick Fury, who was particularly nervous. It won't be here again. Nick Fury looked particularly ugly. Having learned from the past 173, he was afraid that it would be his side again. If that thing appears in the shield building, it will cause heavy casualties. Get ready immediately to cool down the gas. Nick Fury quickly arranged for Hill to be prepared in case the carnivorous vines actually appeared. Taj. It turns out that this plant is afraid of low-temperature environments. Wang's eyes lit up after reading it. In that case, we just need to use freezing magic, or open the portal, and press the snow from the Himalayas onto the carnivorous vines. That's not enough. We need to maintain ultra-low temperatures for the rhizomes. Ji Yuyi shook his head. She saw clearly that the freezing was only temporary, and the plant could still resist. It had to start with the roots. But it doesn't matter. If it really appears in this world, she won't mind taking action to solve it. Asgard. Odin didn't pay much attention to this carnivorous vine. It is said that the vitality of the carnivorous vines is very tenacious, but it is absolutely vulnerable to his Odin's gun. Brother, do you think you can deal with this thing when it appears here? Loki smiled evilly. Of course you can, I don't believe my hammer can't smash it. Thor looked eager to give it a try and almost said that he would appear in Asgard. Odin behind him couldn't help but sigh when he saw this scene, and suddenly felt that he shouldn't give Thor the throne so quickly. Private plane. Jarvis, generate the document immediately and make a cooling weapon. Received, sir. Seeing the terrifying power of the carnivorous vines, Tony Stark decided to develop a cooling weapon immediately, otherwise he would have no means to fight against the carnivorous vines. But if he appeared in this world now, it would be too late. Really, I should think carefully about weapon defense during this period of time. Tony couldn't help but punch himself in the head. He was so decadent during this period that he had no time to prepare for trouble. 600th world. Bruce Wayne is typing away at the keyboard. He has established documentation of anti-carnivorous vines, and cooling weapons have been developed in contact with Wayne Group. If it appeared in my world, I would have to grab Mr. Freeze's equipment first. Bruce Wayne thought of an old rival of his, Mr. Freeze, who had a cooling device. They are currently being held at the police station. Bruce Wayne immediately found out Gordon's contact information just in case. Predict the results, Pirate World. When the sound appeared, many people breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it did not appear in their own world. But the spectators of One Piece world are not calm. Thousand Sunny. What? Appear in our world. Usopp, Nami and Chopper hugged each other with tears on their faces. How can they live if that kind of plant appears in this world? Appeared. Moving carnivorous vines. At this time, Brooke saw the vines of the orange tree moving and thought it was really there. Gunpowder Star. After hearing this, Usopp launched a gunpowder attack without hesitation, causing the orange tree to catch fire. That's what the wind blows. And my orange tree. When Nami saw her beloved orange tree destroyed, she instantly transformed into a demon and punched Usopp down. Then quickly used the weather stick to summon rain. Next to him, Sanji quickly helped put out the fire, and when he was getting water, he didn't forget to step on Usopp. Haha, it's interesting to see you here. I want to see if it can really cut it off. On the contrary, Sauron is burning with fighting spirit, he will not back down. Super. Just come over here. Frankie also squared off. Feel free to come over here. Luffy also stood up and was eager to try. Don't get excited yet, he may not appear near us. Robin kept looking at the screen. I saw the screen switch to an island. A small boat docked on the island. Then there was a fat, ugly man strutting down. The place where the Navy meets us is right here, Ace, enjoy your last freedom. The man looked towards the boat with a smirk. I saw a man with a bare upper body and a skull tattoo on his back being handcuffed to the stern of the boat, looking weak. Ace. When Luffy saw this person, he shouted in shock, wasn't this person his brother Fire Fist Ace? Why were you caught? That person was in Demon Valley Town. Zoro recognized that person. When they were about to go to Sky Island, those people tried to catch them. Why was Ace caught? Why didn't he run away? When Luffy saw his brother's appearance, he couldn't help but jump up and down in excitement, wishing he could fly into the screen and rescue Ace. He should be cuffed by Heilu Shi. Robin knew the answer immediately. Who is that person and why do you want to capture your brother? Nami looked confused. In her impression, Ace was very strong. How could he be caught so easily? Navy headquarters. Fire Fist Ace. That man is Teach who calls himself Blackbeard. When Warring States saw this, his expression changed. He didn't expect that Fire Fist Ace would be involved. He remembered that a few days ago, a newcomer named Teach captured Fire Fist Ace in exchange for the position of the Shichibukai. Then the world government made an appointment with him to meet at the Carry Islands to hand over Ace, but he didn't expect that carnivorous vines would appear there. If Fire Fist Ace escapes in the chaos, we'll be in trouble, but the Navy just coming for reinforcements won't be enough to deal with it. When Warring States thought about the various strengths displayed by the carnivorous vines on the screen, he knew that it would be difficult for the Navy below the rank of Lieutenant General to fight against such a monster. No matter how many they had, they would only be used as food. That's right, Kuzan. Then Sengoku immediately thought of Aokiji. He was a user with frozen fruit abilities and a man who had the ability to deal with carnivorous vines, so he quickly called the phone bug. Hey, Marshall, what's going on? Chingzi asked in confusion after answering the phone. Are you and Garp together? Go to the Carry Islands immediately. Warring States immediately issued the order. Returning to the Navy headquarters from the 7 islands of the water, we will pass by the Carry Islands on the way. It is almost time to go to support. Ah, isn't that the place where Fire Fist Ace is handed over? What are you doing there? Ching-ji asked puzzledly. On the other end of the phone, Aokiji glanced at Garp's back. He was silent and didn't know what he was thinking. Don't worry about it. There is a monster more terrifying than Fire Fist Ace on that island. Only you can solve it. Get there quickly. Hearing what Warring States period said, Chingzi's lazy expression gradually faded away. I understand, I'll rush there immediately. After Chingzi finished speaking, he stood up immediately. When he was about to say hello to Garp, he found that the person was gone. I saw that in the distant sky, Garp had turned into a small dot. Oh my, are you so concerned about your grandson? He's obviously not a relative. Aoki shook his head helplessly, and then immediately used the moonstep to catch up with Garp. At this time in the Carry Islands, Teach took his crew off the ship, preparing to have something to eat and waiting for the Navy to arrive. Dangerous. At this time, Teach felt something and immediately stopped, pulled out his pistol and looked ahead. I saw a large group of people running in front. If I looked closely, their faces were filled with fear, as if something was chasing them from behind. Boom. Then all of a sudden, the building behind the group of people suddenly exploded, and countless vines stretched out from it, rushing towards the crowd crazily, catching everyone who was escaping. What kind of monster is this? Teach was stunned when he saw this kind of vine. He had been wandering in the New World and the Great Channel for many years and had seen many plant monsters, but this was the first time he had seen such a fierce one. Jump up now. Just then Tiki felt something and jumped up immediately. The other crew members followed suit and saw many vines sprouting from under their feet, tearing up the ground and growing straight towards them. The carnivorous vines grew rapidly, and in a blink of an eye, they exceeded the height of Blackbeard and the others, and were about to wrap around them. When the audience in the One Piece world saw this scene, they all felt that they were dead. After all, how could a group of medieval people deal with such a monster? Dark Acupoint. At this critical moment, Teach erupted with a large amount of dark energy, enveloping him and the crew in it. And it sucked all the vines into the darkness and disappeared. The darkness seemed endless. No matter how many vines poured in, they could not break through. At this moment, the bunch of vines shifted their attack targets and rushed towards Ace, but he was not within the range of the dark acupoint. In the blink of an eye, it was entangled by several thick vines. Ace. When Luffy saw this scene, he immediately became anxious. Ace couldn't use his powers with the Sea Tower Stone now. If he was caught, he would be dead. This made Luffy anxious and didn't know what to do. He couldn't help but punch the screen several times, hoping to help Ace, but it had no effect at all. At this moment, Ace felt intense pain, his body was compressing, and screams were coming from all over his body, making him roll his eyes and die at any moment. Click. At this moment, the sound of objects breaking was heard, and then Ace's originally white eyes suddenly flashed with fire. Hoo ho ho. Ace's whole body turned into flames and spread out in all directions, making it impossible for the vines to grab hold of him. Then the flames flew into the distance like meteors, and finally landed on a small hill, transforming back into Ace's true form. Escaped. Ace was surprised at how he survived the disaster, but before he could rejoice, he saw a large number of vines rushing towards him and piercing his body directly. If it were an ordinary person, this would have been long dead, but Ace is a flame man with the ability to burn the burning fruit. Once he enters the elemental form, he will not be harmed. I don't know what you are, but you are very dangerous. Fire fist. Ace sensed that something was wrong and immediately punched out, erupting into a huge flame that spewed towards the vines like a waterfall. Swallow a large number of vines into the sea of fire. However, what Ace didn't expect was that so many vines were not affected by the flames at all and kept passing through the flames towards him. This forced Ace to quickly turn into flames and take off into the air to keep his distance, and then continued to launch flame attacks. Liberation. Just then Teach's voice sounded, and the black hole he created spewed out a large number of crushed vines, knocking away the other approaching vines, giving them time to escape and keep as far away from the carnivorous vines as possible. What kind of monster is this? And why did Ace run out? Teach looked anxiously at Ace in the distance. If Ace ran away, his plan would not come true. But this pile of vines is very tough and difficult to destroy. Thousand Sunny. When Luffy saw Ace getting out of trouble, he immediately raised his hands and cheered in excitement. Great! Ace ran out. Yahoo! Then he hugged Usopp and Chopper directly and did a weird dance to celebrate. Hufufu, that's great. Fortunately, the Halu stone was destroyed first, allowing Ace to use the fruit's ability. Nami let out a breath and relaxed. If Ace died, I don't know what would happen to this troublesome captain. It's just that the danger cannot be eliminated. Ace can't get rid of these vines. Zoro looked at the screen solemnly, while also paying attention to Teach's condition. Sure enough, this guy is not simple, he is very strong. No problem, Ace will definitely be able to escape. Luffy was very confident that as long as Ace was not restrained by the Sea Tower Stone, he would definitely survive. Navy Headquarters. Sengoku stared at the screen with an ugly expression. Unexpectedly, Fire Fist Ace escaped. If you miss this opportunity, you won't be able to catch him. Where's the Ching pheasant? Get there quickly. Sengoku could only urge Aokiji to hurry up. It would be best if he captured the carnivorous vines and even Ace. Garp, it seems he's here too. That guy, please don't cause trouble behind him. Thinking of this, Warring States had to worry about this problem. As an old friend, he knows better than anyone how much Garp values family ties. The only thing that can restrain him is the word justice. At this time, viewers from other worlds asked countless questions. They thought that the people on the screen would be killed by carnivorous vines, but they actually exploded with various abilities, which shocked them. Tony Stark, what's going on? What did the fat man release, and why did the naked man turn into flames? Jiraiya, what kind of ninjutsu is this? Fire release is not that outrageous. That darkness is a bit like yin release. Nick Fury, that guy named Jiraiya, I don't even understand the ninjutsu you're talking about, okay. This is a superpower. Sun Wukong, a person with superpowers, like a dumpling. Bruce Wayne, why did it involve food? That guy named Luffy, you are from the same world, right? Can you explain it? Luffy, it's the devil fruit I mentioned before. Eating devil fruit can give you great power. Ace just eats the natural devil fruit. If you burn the fruit, your whole body can turn into flames. Tony Stark, what superpower does that fat man use? What is the black thing that comes out? Luffy, I don't know about that either. Robin, I think it's the ability of the darkness fruit. It's said to be able to release darkness and absorb everything. Seeing this, everyone remembered that Luffy did say something about devil fruit, but they just ignored it because of what happened later. They didn't expect that this so-called devil fruit could be so powerful. Marvel, Karma Taj. Furuichi shook his fan and looked at the screen's remarks. Is it dark? It's far different from Dormammu's. It's just that you can get superpowers by eating the fruit, which is like a magic prop. Ji Yuyi is very clear about this kind of thing. There are many magic props in this world that can gain power as soon as they are obtained. It's just that eating it like this is very rare. This guy named Luffy said that after eating a devil fruit, you will lose your physical strength when you touch the sea water. Such a price is negligible for signing a contract with the devil. Ancient One commented that if she could get a lot of magical power if she paid this price, she would be very willing. 600th World. Diana looked at the screen in surprise and told Ace to keep releasing the flames. A devil fruit. It's interesting, but it seems to be a pirate. Diana had to frown when she thought of this. Such a powerful force is actually a pirate. How should the people there live? If only I were in that world. Diana has always hated evil, and in her opinion, pirates are evil people who do all kinds of evil. In this case, he hopes that the pirates on the screen and the carnivorous vines will die together. Batman base. Bruce Wayne is recording the data in the video. Devil fruit, pirates, this is not a good combination. Bruce Wayne's idea is the same as Diana's. In his eyes, pirates are criminals and must be arrested. Then he looked at the barrage of Sengoku on the screen. This man is a navy, he should be able to deal with such a powerful pirate, right? At this time in the pirate world, Ace is trying hard to fight against the vines that attack from all directions. But it's better to say that it's desperately running away than to say it's fighting. This vine is too difficult to deal with. No matter how much fire he releases, he can't burn it. He can only rely on elementalization to escape everywhere. How could there be such a terrible plant in the world? Ace's expression was not very good. When was he beaten and had to run away? Even when he faced Whitebeard, it was not like this. It made him very annoyed. I don't believe that my flame can't destroy you. Big flame ring. Ace couldn't accept this fact, so he burst out a lot of flames without hesitation and spread them around, rising like a tornado. Push the vines away forcefully. Emperor Yan. Then all the flames gathered above Ace, turning into a huge fireball that looked like a sun. Fortunately, there are no living people on this island anymore. It seems that they have all been wiped out by this monster. Ace thought of this and his face was gloomy. Although I don't know what you are, just disappear. Ace dropped Emperor Yan and threw him towards the endless carnivorous vines below. Buzz buzz buzz. When Emperor Yan touched the target, it caused an extremely strong earthquake, and the whole island kept shaking. Then a huge and extremely sky-high fire appeared, and a terrifying explosion sounded. Boom boom boom. In the explosion, the island trembled wildly, and it seemed to collapse at any time. Countless flames kept surging like waves, turning the whole island into a sea of fire. The carnivorous vines were actually severely damaged under such an attack. The vines, which were originally extremely hard, were now scorched and fell to the ground powerlessly. Seeing this scene, the audience was extremely shocked. Thousand Suns. Luffy stared at the screen in amazement. He himself did not expect Ace to be so powerful. Is this the true strength of Brother Luffy? Sanji was so shocked that he did not even notice that his cigarette had fallen. So strong, worthy of being a member of the Whitebeard Pirates. Zoro was under great pressure and had to wipe off his sweat. Then he suddenly thought of one thing. Even if Ace was so strong, he could still be caught. How strong is that man? Marvel World, Shield. Oh, we shit. My. Nick Fury could not remain calm when he saw this, and all kinds of swear words came out of his mouth. The power of this explosion is far superior to that of a missile. The scale of the entire island is close to that of a nuclear bomb explosion. Are the superpowers who have eaten the devil fruit so strong? Barton, Natasha and Hill next to them were all shocked. How could they fight against such power? Barton and Natasha were originally complacent because they had gained new powers, but now seeing more terrifying superpowers, they felt that what they mastered was child's play. Is this the power of the devil fruit ability users in the pirate world? If there are such pirates in their world, how can they fight? Private plane. Tony Stark can no longer remain calm. He can't resist the power of the Flame Emperor at all. Jarvis, help me design a cooling weapon plan. It must be large scale and can be equipped on armor. Stark quickly contacted Jarvis and asked him to design it first. Such a terrifying flame can only be fought by cooling it down in advance. The development of cooling weapons must be completed as soon as possible. Although it is not the same world, Tony Stark still hopes to prevent it before it happens. There is more than one person who has the same idea as him, and there is also Bruce Wayne. He is now studying various plans against Ace. It is not the same world, but he is worried that if this group of pirates comes to his world one day, there will be a way to fight against it. Lucius, how about the development of the cooling weapon I want? If possible, it should be developed as soon as possible, and it should be large scale and easy to carry. Don't ask so many questions, just treat it as a supply to the fire department. Bruce Wayne did not forget to call and contact his trusted Lucius to urge the development of cooling weapons while researching. Immediately attracted complaints from the other side. Equipping the fire department with cooling weapons is really nonsense. The world of Naruto. Naruto looked at the explosion on the screen in shock. Immortal, if it were you, could you resist? Naruto asked timidly. He felt that he definitely couldn't. Jiraiya's face twitched after hearing this. The power of this Entei far exceeded the fire escape he knew. He could not confront it head-on except to escape. Of course, no problem. However, in front of his disciples, he always had to save face. As soon as these words came out, they immediately attracted Naruto's respectful gaze. Caused Jiraiya to turn his head away in embarrassment. Tsunade next to him had to roll her eyes, and then looked at the screen solemnly. In her opinion, perhaps only her great-grandfather, Senju Hashirama, could compete with him. Is the pirate world so powerful? Don't show up here. Tsunade had to worry about what she would do if such a person appeared in her world. After all, there are so-called contained objects that appear in other worlds for no apparent reason. Thinking of this, Tsunade was suddenly worried about the future, and suddenly felt that she couldn't continue to hang out. At this time, on the screen, Ace was kneeling on the ground with a weak look on his face, panting constantly. Using this move was extremely draining on his physical strength. Otherwise, Teach wouldn't be caught so easily. As this settled, Ace looked at the burnt black vines around him, but when he saw the squirming vines in the distance, his expression changed. It's such a terrible monster. I have no choice but to run away first. Although he was very reluctant, Ace had no choice but to run away in disgrace. Captain Ace, where do you want to go? Just then Teach suddenly appeared behind Ace. Not good. Only then did Ace remember that just when Tiki was about to make a move, Tiki punched him to the ground. Dark water. Then Teach immediately grabbed Ace's neck and took away his ability, making Ace unable to resist. I caught you for the second time. You really don't have a long memory. Although there is an emergency, it doesn't affect me from taking you away. After speaking, Tiki looked at the surrounding situation and realized that he could no longer stay here and had to leave quickly. Hateful. As soon as Ace saw that he was caught again, he immediately gritted his teeth unwillingly. Thousand Sunny. Ace. Luffy screamed anxiously when he saw Ace being caught, and subconsciously punched him directly through the screen. It's strange why Ace was caught. He can transform into elements. Frankie felt something was wrong and made a sound. The darkness in that Tiki's hand. Robin seemed to notice something and had to tell his guess. Ace, run. Luffy didn't understand that much and could only hope that Ace would run away quickly. He could do nothing but yell on the spot, which made him suddenly feel particularly useless. Let's go, Captain Ace. Congratulations on being free for a while. Teach lifted Ace up and prepared to leave. Ace. At this moment, a somewhat old but particularly powerful voice came, resounding throughout the entire island. Hearing this voice, Tiki's whole body trembled violently, and a fear engraved in his bones couldn't help but arise. You're such a troublemaker. Don't even think about running away if you fall into my hands. I saw an old man leaping from the air. This man was the Navy hero Garp. Ace had to be stunned when he saw Garp leaping in the air. Old man, why is he here? Yeah, hero Garp. Teach had to look shocked when he saw Garp actually appearing. He didn't want to face such a terrifying person. Whirring. At this moment, there was a strange movement all around, and it was seen that most of the carnivorous vines that had been destroyed by Ace using the Flame Emperor continued to grow and multiply again. In the blink of an eye, it returned to the same state as before. What a terrible plant is this? Tiki's eyes trembled when he saw this. He knew better than anyone how terrifying Ace's Entei was. However, even such tricks could not destroy the pile of vines. Make him afraid. Is this the plant monster the Warring States period talked about? It's strange enough. Garp looked at the large number of vines growing towards him and raised his fist with a proud smile. No matter what kind of monster he is, he will be crushed under my fist. I saw that Garp's whole body's strength was concentrated in his fist, and his extremely domineering force was continuously compressed. Iron Fist Crush. Garp punched out, erupting an extremely terrifying shock wave, falling downwards like a meteorite. Bang 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 bang. Extremely violent explosions sounded one after another. Facing Garp's iron fist, the carnivorous vines exploded crazily, and even the ground below continued to collapse. Garp used his direct fist to smash out a huge crater. Tiki kept vomiting blood and flew in the air. The pain he suffered was very great. The dark fruit absorbs everything, so he will feel 3 times the pain than normal people. Garp's full force attack was already unbearable, but now he has to bear it 3 times. Even if he doesn't die, he will still be disabled. Looking at his proud work, Garp smiled, but the change in the next second caused his expression to change. That is, the carnivorous vines are multiplying crazily to fill the gap, returning to normal and heading towards Garp. Tisk, it's really like what Warring States said, his regeneration ability is amazing. I thought he was deceiving me. When Garp saw this scene, he had to look serious. He had never seen a creature survive his full attack. Kuzan, I leave it to you. Hearing Garp's shout, he saw a light blue figure rushing from the sea to the land. Ice Age. This person was Aokiji. After he landed, a large amount of cold air immediately erupted, freezing a large number of vines into ice instantly. It's a bit difficult to freeze an island. After Aoki looked at the vines all over the island, he took a deep breath and burst out with more cold air. The extremely cold air spread like a tornado, gradually freezing more and more vines. The remaining vines that had not yet frozen seemed to sense the threat from the green pheasant and attacked him against the vines. Although some of the vines began to freeze, there were still some that were not, and they were getting closer and closer to the Aoki pheasant. Fist bone. At this moment, Garp took action. He punched wildly and fired countless violent air cannons, bombing any vines that were close to Aoki pheasant to ensure that Aoki pheasant could continue to freeze the vines. With Garp's cooperation, Aoki pheasant's cold air spread to the entire island, freezing all the carnivorous vines. Iron Fist Crush. Chain. When Garp saw so many vines frozen into ice, he immediately punched frantically with all his strength. Boom, boom, boom. There were many violent explosions on the surface, as if many meteorites were falling, causing the entire island to shake wildly. The frozen carnivorous vine meat was continuously shattered under such impact. At this moment, the terrifying vitality of the carnivorous vines also showed up, and then the opportunity for the ice cubes to break to reproduce again and fight back. But the green pheasant has been spreading cold air, so when the carnivorous vines were about to recover, they were immediately frozen. In the blink of an eye, the originally huge forest of carnivorous vines became extremely sparse. Everything finally calmed down. Thousand Sunny. Oh my god, is this the true strength of Aokiji and Luffy's grandfather? Zoro could no longer maintain his composure and looked at the screen with trembling eyes. They had fought against Ao Pheasant in the past, and they had been beaten completely. Ao Pheasant at that time was probably very aggressive, otherwise if he took it seriously, everyone present would not be able to survive until now. But the most shocking thing is Garp's strength. He can cause such horrific destruction with his bare hands. Is this the true strength of a naval hero? Not only Zoro but others were completely shocked, and they didn't dare to breathe. Luffy, do you know your grandpa is so strong? Usopp asked Luffy tremblingly. If Garp had been serious, they wouldn't have been able to escape even if they used wind cannons. This is also the first time I've seen it. Luffy couldn't control his expression. Only now did he realize how remarkable it was that he could survive in the hands of his grandfather when he was a child. At this time, the scene was already noisy. Nick Fury. What's going on with that old man? How can he have such terrifying destructive power? Is this some kind of devil fruit? Nick Fury undoubtedly raised the doubts of people in other worlds. As for Aoki Pheasant's freezing ability, they were not too shocked due to their previous experience of fire and darkness. But it seems that Garp can do such terrible damage with his bare hands, which makes them have to wonder whether it has anything to do with the devil fruit. Sengoku. Of course not. Garp is a strong man who has trained himself to the extreme, not a devil fruit ability user. Tony Stark. Train yourself. What a joke, how can a human be so strong? Zoro. What's impossible? You can do it if you practice well. Sun Wukong. That's right, my friend, you can also do such power. This old man is really amazing. I really want to fight him. Tsunade. You can cause such great destructive power with your fists, just like me. Bruce Wayne. What, humans in your universe can train themselves to this extent? Bruce Wayne looked at the screen with dilated pupils. In order to fight crime, he learned various martial arts, kept training himself, and even strictly controlled his diet, and trained himself to the limit of the human body. I thought my strength was the peak of humanity. But I never expected that there would be a Garp who was beyond common sense, and people in the same universe as him, or even in other worlds, thought it was normal. Humans in different universes are so different. Bruce Wayne realized the difference between universes, and his body was shrouded by a huge fear. Marvel, S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury's face was so dark that he couldn't see his features clearly. The destructive power displayed by Cap was much more terrifying than the Hulk who made a big fuss some time ago. Is this really something a human can do? It's outrageous. Can humans train to this level? Nick Fury couldn't help but look at Natasha and Barton in confusion. These two people are considered to have the highest physical skills in S.H.I.E.L.D. and have a certain status in speaking. Natasha and Barton shook their heads at the same time. In their opinion, even if they train for 10,000 years, they can't reach Cap's level. Taj. The magic apprentices were all shocked by Garp's performance. Before, they could still accept the Devil Fruit's abilities. After all, they gained power by accepting knowledge other than humans, and they did the same thing. But Garp can actually develop this kind of power on his own, and people from the Dragon Ball universe and Naruto universe can also do it. This is too outrageous. Master Yi, are the differences between different universes so big? Modu asked in disbelief. At this time, Yi kept shaking his fan and opened his mouth slightly. He was also shocked. He came back to his senses after hearing Modu's inquiry. The multiverse is infinite, and different universes have different rules. It seems that those people's universe rules are different, and they can train humans on Earth to the point of destroying the surface of the Earth. Ancient One explained, which made the other mages couldn't help but open their mouths. Asgard. The Asgardians were all shocked by Garp's performance. In their perception, the people on Earth were very weak and not a single opponent for them. But this Garp's performance is outrageous. Thor was stunned. He had thought that if he faced Garp's fist, would he still be safe? It doesn't seem to work. Brother, the humans in the pirate world are very powerful. Do you think you can beat them? At this time, Loki asked with a smirk. Of course, I am the most powerful warrior in Asgard. How could I be afraid of mere earthlings? Thor immediately regained his confidence and shook the hammer to encourage himself. He couldn't act cowardly in front of his younger brother. Leo World, Fengyuan and the star clusters. Looking at the picture in disbelief. Is this the power of earthlings? It is too much beyond their understanding. If all the people on Earth in our universe were as strong as Garp, they wouldn't be afraid of monsters and aliens. Fengyuan couldn't help but think excitedly. That's not possible, our situation is different. Zhu Xingtuan immediately shook his head and rejected this idea. He believed in the potential of people on Earth, but it was still too exaggerated to this point. Fengyuan nodded in agreement. Garp's attack gave him an inspiration. Leo has very little energy and cannot use light skills often, so he is not suitable for distance combat. If he could punch from a distance like Garp and destroy his opponent with shock waves, he would undoubtedly make up for the distance problem. Then Fengyuan couldn't help but imagine that when he performed the Leo flying kick, his feet hadn't even landed yet, and the impact was the first to crush his opponent. Thinking of this, Fengyuan clenched his fists hard. If people on Earth can do it, then he must also be able to do it. Doraemon World. Doraemon, can I also train to that point? Nobita asked starry-eyed. If he was as powerful as Garp, he wouldn't be afraid of Fat Tiger, and he could even win Shizuka's heart. You think too much. Humans in our universe can't exercise to that extent. Doraemon immediately rejected the idea. After hearing this, Nobita had to hang his head in disappointment. At this time, Garp and his friends were on their side. What a terrible monster. Qingzi looked at the carnivorous vines solemnly. This was the first time he had seen such a terrifying monster. Even Garp's iron fist could not completely destroy it. After I go back, I have to ask Warring States what is going on. When I asked him just now, he said it was a containment object and another universe. I couldn't understand it at all. After Garp landed, he tilted his head and looked at the vines in the ice with a confused expression. So Mr. Carp, what should we do with that guy? At this time, Ching Pheasant pointed at Ace not far away and asked. When it was frozen just now, he deliberately avoided Ace. Ace relied on his own flames to withstand the freezing air. But it also consumes more energy. After hearing this, Garp looked at Ace with a gloomy expression. He had received an order from the Warring States period to capture Ace alive. He knew very well what would happen if he caught Ace, but the responsibility of the Navy made him unable to let the pirate go, and he had to clench his fists in confusion. The containment of the carnivorous vine was successfully contained, and rewards were distributed. The main contributors are Kuzan and Garp, and the secondary contributors are Ace. At this moment, the voice appeared in the ears of Garp, Aoki and Ace. The sudden sound forced them to look around vigilantly. Distribute rewards. Garp gets the Ox Talisman, Aoki Pheasant gets Absolute Zero Freezing Air, and Ace's flame evolves into 3000 Flames Flame. After the sound ends, Aoki and Ace felt that there was a lot more information in their minds, and Garp had something in his hand. The Cow Talisman, as long as it is worn on the body, can increase the user's power hundreds of times. Absolute Zero is the theoretically lowest temperature in physics. Once it reaches this realm, any energy ceases to exist and everything freezes. 3000 Flames, a flame born in the starry sky, can absorb the power of stars to strengthen itself, and the 3000 Flames have amazing self-healing capabilities. As long as important vital points are not damaged, any injury can be recovered, also known as a mortal body. After the sound ends, Ace felt as if his flame had really changed. A manic emotion arose in his heart, and he wanted to vent it out. Ace couldn't help but roared up to the sky, and his whole body erupted with extremely violent purple flames, which looked particularly strange. When the flames appeared, Ace felt that his previous injuries and lost physical strength were constantly recovering. Careful, Ching Pheasant realized that the flame was filled with extremely terrifying dangers, and did not dare to be careless at all, and immediately released cold air to resolve it. At this moment, he unexpectedly realized that his chill was even colder than before. He could swear that he had never been so cold before. The flames immediately turned into frost before they even touched their own cold air. I don't know what happened, but goodbye, old man. After Ace finished speaking, he quickly turned into flames and rose into the sky. He finally regained his freedom. Naturally, he had to run as far as possible to avoid being caught. He now feels that the threat posed by Aoki Pheasant and Garp is many times greater than before. You can't stay here until you figure out your own changes. Ace, don't even think about running away. When Garp saw Ace actually trying to run away, he couldn't help but punched in anger. At this moment, the Ox Talisman burst out with dazzling light. Garp punched and fired an air cannon like a missile, catching up with Ace in an instant. Boom! A thunderous explosion sounded. After Ace was hit, he fell like a wounded bird, blood spurting out from his mouth. At this moment, the 3000 Flames came into play, immediately restoring Ace's injuries, allowing him to continue flying quickly. Garp didn't continue to care about Ace, but looked at his fist and the cow charm with a confused expression. Why did he suddenly become more powerful? His punch just now didn't have much power, but why did it suddenly improve so much? Is it because of this cow charm? Lieutenant General Garp, do you want to continue chasing Fire Fist Ace? Aoki asked after calming down. That kid has flown so far and can't catch up, so forget it. Garp immediately found a reason to refuse, and Qingzi could only shrug helplessly after hearing this. And this plant is even more threatening, and there are those called the Blackbeard Pirates. After Garp finished speaking, he looked at the Blackbeard Pirates who were frozen together not far away, and couldn't help but reveal murderous intent in his eyes. Garp looked at Teach and the others and felt extremely unhappy. They almost took Ace to the Navy headquarters. He knew better than anyone what would happen. Tiki, right, now that you've fallen into my hands, don't even think about it. Garp said fiercely. Qingji didn't say anything after hearing this, but looked at the cold air emanating from himself. Aboard the Thousand Sunny. Yeah, that's great for Ace to escape. Luffy howled excitedly to the sky, and then he and Usopp Chopper put their arms around each other's shoulders and danced a strange dance to celebrate. Both Ace and Marine have become stronger. Zoro couldn't help but feel tremendous pressure when he saw how much Ace and the three of them had become stronger on the screen. But under this pressure, he was not afraid, but instead became more excited. If I can also take down a containment object, how strong can I become? At this time, there were various barrages crossing the screen. Tony Stark. What? Absolute Zero, what a joke. This is an area that is difficult to reach in physics. It's even called fantasy. Luffy. What is Absolute Zero? Tony Stark. That's the theoretical lowest temperature. minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. It can freeze everything. Once any living thing touches absolute zero, it will die instantly. Even light and even the sun will be frozen. Not to mention how wonderful Tony Stark's expression is now. As a scientist, how could he not know how terrifying absolute zero is and how difficult it is to achieve? It can be said to be a dream realm that humans can never reach. The being behind this screen can actually give you even absolute zero. When Tony Stark thought of this, he took a deep breath in shock, followed by a look of enthusiasm. If I could also get a reward, what would it be? Can it help me break through the technological level? Thinking of this, Tony Stark couldn't help but look forward to seeing if there would be any contained objects that he could deal with later. Sun Wukong. You can even freeze the sun, how powerful is it? Ancient One. The premise for that is that the scale released by this green pheasant can rival the sun. Otherwise, it's like water can extinguish a fire, but a glass of water can't extinguish a fire, so it can't cool the sun. After hearing Ji Yuyi's words, many people breathed a sigh of relief, especially those in the pirate world. It would be over if the Aoki pheasant was really that scary, but it couldn't be ignored. Kizaru. Even light can be frozen. This made Kizaru a little panicked. What he was most proud of was the power of turning into light, but now that Aokiji can freeze even light, wouldn't that be very detrimental to him? Even Akainu looks ugly. If what Tony Stark says is true, then his magma will no longer be able to deal with Aokiji. The happiest thing was the Warring States period. It was undoubtedly a good thing that the Navy became stronger. Especially Garp. His iron fist was originally powerful, but now its power has increased hundreds of times. Neither Kaido nor Whitebeard is an opponent anymore, and the Navy will definitely be able to sweep all pirates. This makes Sengoku couldn't help but look forward to more containment objects later. This is a great opportunity for their Navy to improve its strength. But he didn't forget Fire Fist Ace. Although he didn't know what 3000 flames was, it was particularly troublesome for Ace to become more powerful. Then he took a deep breath and picked up the phone to make a call. Send the order, raise the arrest warrant for Fire Fist Ace, 1 billion berries. The barrage on the screen continues. Naruto. I don't understand it, but it sounds awesome. Vegeta. HMPH, it's just a piece of ice that can scare people. It can be broken easily. Star Cluster. That one called Vegeta. If you try to attack the absolute zero range, your attack will definitely be frozen instantly. Vegeta. I don't believe this kind of scaremongering. Absolute zero and contained objects are no match for my Uncle Vegeta. Diana. You can tell from your words that you are an arrogant fool. Vegeta. You fool, you dare to laugh at me. If you were in the same universe as me, you would have died long ago. Diana. You can try. I don't know how many of them I have killed. The so-called creatures trying to invade the Earth. If we are really in the same universe, you will be one of them. Bruce Wayne. What? Have you ever destroyed a creature trying to invade the universe? Who the hell are you? Diana. I'm not obligated to answer you. 600th world. Bruce Wayne looked at the screen in shock. He saw that Diana's prefix was DC, which was the same universe as his. In their world, there are actually beings fighting against the invaders of the Earth. Could it be that my world is not as simple as I thought? Bruce Wayne then begins to investigate things about Diana. He must find this person and figure out who she is. Marvel World. Ji Yuyi looked at Diana's words on the screen with some interest. Could he be the supreme mage like me? That's interesting. While everyone was talking about it, the screen made a cold sound again. At this time, Xie Yun sighed. Congratulations to the host for getting the reward, Carnivorous Vine Control. You can release the vines to control them according to your own will and recycle them. After the system prompt sounded in Xie Yun's ears, he saw a vine sticking out of his cuff, swaying from side to side very obediently. Attack! Xie Yun gave an order, and the vine shot out immediately, as fast as a bullet. Split. With another command, the vines quickly split into several branches. Receive. Then the vines returned to Xie Yun's clothes. He was very satisfied with this ability, which gave him a very effective and difficult attack method. I'm really looking forward to the next ability. Xie Yun looked at the computer with a satisfied look on his face. People from other worlds must work harder. If you don't work hard, how can I go against the will of God? Now predict the next containment object, pyro. A cold electronic voice sounded from the screen. The next contained object appeared and immediately attracted everyone's attention. Some people begin to look forward to whether they can deal with it well in exchange for rewards, and of course some people don't want to encounter it. The contained fire man is a creature that is indistinguishable from flames. His physiological structure is completely incomprehensible. It is obviously a flame, but it is alive. His only food is flammable substances, and there is no bottom line. Ingestion. This process is dangerous and fatal. In order to obtain flammable materials, the pyromaniac will keep moving and unintentionally cause fires. As the range of his movement increases, the scope of the fire increases. There was once a town that was burned. People were drowned in the sea of fire. Then the scene switched. In a forest, a group of young people were having a party. They looked quite normal. There is a small spark jumping out of the barbecue campfire. No one cares about such a small thing, as such a spark will go out when it hits the ground. But the strange thing is that this spark actually jumped like a real entity and jumped towards a pile of small gas bottles next to it. Boom! A terrifying big explosion occurred, and the group of young people were buried in the sea of fire. And the spark became bigger as a result, and was beating around, using corpses, tents, trees, etc. as food, constantly devouring it, making itself stronger. And as it moved, it inadvertently increased the intensity of the fire. In just a moment, the entire forest was covered in flames. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.